one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Chaplain Bradley, good morning.
Good morning. Let's pray together. Father, we come here today because there's business to be conducted for the county. But we just look around and want to express gratitude for the blessings that you give us and the place in which we live. We thank you for those who serve. And even as we look at the agenda today, it's a long agenda. Thank you for the people who sit in the office and put together the paperwork, who make the plans, who share these things, and then, Father, they come to the public. Thank you for the participation of our citizens in our government, and that's what makes us truly a great government. And as we look forward to Memorial Day that's coming, Father, we're grateful to be individuals that are part of a grateful nation for those who've sacrificed the utmost. And we just continue to pray for their families and the peace that you can give for them in the midst of their loss. God, in all things, we express gratitude and we give you thanks in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Board vote today as the Siskiyou County Flood Control and Water Conservation District, Siskiyou Power Authority, and County Service Area 4, and receives no additional compensation.
Supervisor, how will the announcement be on Saturday?
So the rest of the roll call: Supervisor Valenzuela,
Here.
Supervisor Chris,
Here,
Supervisor Oakland, and Supervisor Thompson.
Here. We're at item 4, presentation from the public. This time slot is for information from the public. No action are conducted on matters presented at this time. You will be allowed 3 minutes for your presentation, and chair can extend the time to 5 minutes for appropriate circumstances. Written comments can be presented, if so desired, by providing a minimum of 7 copies to the clerk. When addressing the board, please state your name for the record prior to providing your comment. Please address the board as a whole through the chair. Comments should be limited to matters within the jurisdiction of the board. And Anna, if you would give the instruction, I guess, or indication on how people online can at least let us know that they would like to speak and how they can do that before we get going.
For those of you on Zoom, please press *9. That will indicate on our end that you wish to speak. And then I believe it is #9 to accept the unmuting when you're called upon to speak.
Let's go to online first today.
Battery 100%. Chrissy Reynolds, it's your turn to speak.
Good morning.
Chrissy Reynolds. Good morning, Chrissy Reynolds, Copco. I want to thank the board.
You cut out,
Oh,
Chrissy.
sorry, I don't know what's going on.
There you go. You're there.
Let me.
We can hear you.
Okay. The board and the county ag department for installing the new air quality monitor at the Copco Community Center. And for the monitors that are now all back at 100%. While installing the new monitor, in fact, we smelled wildfire smoke. For those of us with PTSD from the various incidents within the county of wildfire evacuations,
Is it us?
just seeing and smelling smoke is triggering. We were able to assess the smoke was most likely coming from the Mount Ashland Ski Park, as their sensors were in the red. And the monitors around the area showed a pathway towards us. That being said, this is how we can have information in real time. still unsettling, yet somehow reassuring that it wasn't closer to us. Two things in that vein. Our volunteer fire department, fire corps, is in its infancy and in its next incarnation. And with that is inexperience. Inexperience and a lack of long-term knowledge, which is unsettling, which is albeit helpful, that we even continue to have people that volunteer. The Mallard Cove Recreation Site has long been a known landing zone for emergency helicopter transport. That access has been blocked by large boulders. CAL FIRE has known of this, as has FERC, as has the county, as well as the KRRC, and yet it was allowed to be blocked. I know from our new fire board president that CAL FIRE is aware of this and is working to have this removed. And a new way to enter is being worked out. My frustration is how this could have happened once again. Why are Cockville residents continuing to have their safety in jeopardy, either due to incompetence, left hand, right hand, who's in charge here, or just falling through the tracks? Hopefully we won't need that LZ while someone figures this out, but this shows a lack of care for the well-being of our residents.
Chrissy, I'll need you to wrap up, please.
And secondly, we would like to know, okay, is the water safe now? Can we let our animals go down to the water? Is it safe to irrigate from the water?
Okay.
And thank you for your recent letter to regarding the request of full allocation on the water. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else online?
Showing no others online.
I have one in-house public comment. I'm not sure of the first name. Ebert is the last name. Lyndon? Okay. You're on. Good morning.
Good morning. I too would like to thank the board for your draft emergency declaration, resolution, and your letter to FERC.
There you go. You can pull it towards you. It's fine.
And we need your name for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry. Linda Ebert, I'm from the Cockville area. I come in regard to a matter that the Fire Auxiliary, of which I'm a member, wishes to take up. We find it necessary to reproduce our Cockville Lake Wildfire and Safety Evacuation Guide. It features a code red designation, which has been changed. And we also have a change in our fire chief. Tom Bush is now our fire chief. Our chief Francis Gill Go, but his name is on his brochure also, so that's another reason for updating it. But my question today is, we featured an upriver access, temporary, we called it safe zone, of to fishing access to, and this dates back from an old flyer, which we based our brochure on 3 years ago, that also featured access to as an upriver temporary safe zone. And I'm wondering if we can still have set aside some place, whether it's access to or it's been suggested there's a meadow by the old Rancher Miller home that would be open enough to have helicopters land and people gather in case the fire came up from the Agri-Beswick Junction, and could now conceivably jump the river because it's very narrow in some places. And so that whole area downriver could be closed, with upriver being the only access out conceivably. So I'm wondering, before we republish, for several reasons, our evacuation guide, if we might straighten out whether we have an upriver designation for a gathering place and or landing pad.
Okay, thank you. I think I'm gonna put you in touch with, Mr. Shinomi. Is that correct? Have you met him yet?
Yes.
Okay, he would be your point person, especially for what you're asking, I think, right? Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Right, Supervisor.
So that was all I had.
Okay.
That was all I had. Thank you, Mrs. Stevens.
Any other?
Mr. Brand on the community alert for this evacuation brochure educating. So yeah, Harold can help.
Anyone else in-house for public comment? I have several others, but they're for specific items. I'm not seeing any other public comment, so we'll move on to the 5 consent agenda. Anything to be pulled? If not, looking for action. Have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda.
I got the motion, I missed the second.
Supervisor Oak.
All right, Supervisor Valenzuela.
Yep.
Supervisor Chris.
Aye.
Supervisor Okren. And Supervisor Copsa.
Aye. Item 6A, Tobacco Education Council. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for, thank you for allowing us to present this morning. I'm Stephen Bryan. I'm the Regional and Program Director with the Siskiyou Community Resource Collaborative, and I'm the Chair of the Tobacco Education Council, and I'm here with other agencies and volunteers that are part of the Tobacco Education Council as well. I just wanted, my part of this, I wanted to present on what we've been up to since 2015, as far as promoting tobacco education throughout the county for adults. We've been hosting a through the local schools for the last 3 years. We just judged another round of art contest for this year. Out of those art contests, we came up with a logo a few years ago on "Don't Drain Your Power." You might have seen those around with shirts and banners and other marketing things that we've been doing throughout the county. We speak at local tabling events since 2015, which include parenting classes, free community events, programs that we do to the local schools like girl circles, boys councils, play groups, and other anywhere we touch the community, we're always promoting tobacco education. This year at Kids Day Festival, we had over 2,000 attendees, and we were able to reach a whole lot of kids. We had about 1,300 kids there this year. So we are always looking for any opportunity to engage the community and provide that education. And then on top of that, we also do community education classes about tobacco. We've worked with other organizations to do workshops on vaping and how tobacco is harmful to the community. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Anna.
Good morning. My name is Anna. As County Office of Education, I am the Tobacco Use Prevention and Education Coordinator, and I also have been on the tech board for about 9 years, and I serve as the treasurer. Essentially, I help take care of the monies that we have received over the years for the Tobacco Education Council, and help keep track of them and do all the purchasing and that sort of thing, as well as participate in all the other activities. So, and I work in the schools. So our program works through 6th grade through 12th grade for 2B is the acronym. And we do a lot of different services throughout the schools. So I help be the liaison in terms of what we're seeing in the schools and what's happening, and also what we're trying to achieve with some of our community standards for doing education and prevention work for tobacco and nicotine use. So as you may or may not know, that right now, vaping is a really big concern in our schools. A lot of schools is really at the top of their list in terms of what they see with some problematic behaviors for students. There's been a really big increase in the amount of students that are referred to me for one-on-one cessation and intervention. So all of our campuses in Siskiyou County are a certified tobacco-free campus. So that means no tobacco or nicotine product is allowed on campus. Even any devices for any type of tobacco and nicotine product are not allowed. So, even if a student claims like there's these different vape pens that have melatonin in them, even if, they claim there's no nicotine, doesn't matter, it's not allowed on our campuses. So when a student is in possession on campus, then they can be referred to me for tobacco cessation and intervention services. So I see a lot of students one-on-one and work with them to try and help identify what's going on. If we can help them, I can help them quit and address all the other different circumstances that are contributing to their use. And so there has been a really large increase in the amount of students that are being referred to our program for cessation and intervention. It used to be busy school year, I'd maybe get 15 to 20 referrals. Now I get like over 50 referrals a year. So it's easily doubled within the last 2 years. And I know those are just the students that are getting caught. That's not indicative necessarily of who the students are using, but there's a higher prevalence of vape products. And we can talk about that for a long time, but that's not why we're here. So that is a big portion of what I do. And then we do prevention curriculums for our schools. We do youth development projects. We have a tobacco pure ed project that we do every year with our middle schoolers. So a variety of different projects to try and normalize not using tobacco and nicotine and try and help young people find their motivation of why they would not want to be a tobacco or nicotine user. So that's a little bit about my contribution, what I do. And then I was going to talk to you just a little bit also about the Master Settlement Agreement, which happened in 1998. And it was the majority of the states across the U.S. that essentially sued 7 different tobacco companies and won. And within that Master Settlement Agreement, there was a lot of different things that were agreed upon. And a lot of them have to do with the way that tobacco companies are advertising and specifically targeting youth. If you remember Joe Camel, that wasn't targeted at a 40-year-old chewer or smoker. That's directly targeted at youth, because tobacco companies know if they can get young people hooked, they have a lifetime user, and that is a revenue, and that is what they're after at the end of the day. And so with the Master Settlement Agreement, then there's a lot of language about the way tobacco companies are allowed to advertise and not allowed to advertise. And it also created a payment funds that have to be set up with these 7 different tobacco companies that are to be paid in perpetuity so long as those tobacco companies are still selling cigarettes, and they have to continue to pay the money. And so that's paid to many different states throughout the U.S. and including California and all the different counties. And so Siskiyou County, of course, is a recipient of the Master Settlement Agreement dollars. On average, Siskiyou County receives a little over $400,000 each year from the Master Settlement Agreement, so that's coming directly from the tobacco companies. And separate from that is the way the state of California taxes tobacco and nicotine products, and those taxes that come directly from how tobacco and nicotine products are sold comes in to fund programs like my program, other different prevention programs, and those dollars also go to, Medi-Cal and other programs within California also. So some of those Master Settlement dollars were originally intended to also help prevent some prevention programs, though that really never came to fruition at a wide scale. And so most government agencies that have received Master Settlement dollars have used those for just the other variety of tasks that have to be taken care of within a government agency. And so far, since 1999 was the first Master Settlement Agreement payment that came out, then Siskiyou County received just over $11,700,000 from these, which if we're going to put some, some products that are not contributing to the health of our overall population, then at least there is some retribution from that. And we have been receiving, thankfully, from you guys, the board has been so generous to be able to provide some of those dollars to our countywide efforts as the Tobacco Education Coalition. And we have the total amount of money, I don't think it's in front of me, but we have received a variety, probably, of money. We've received $10,000 a year back in 15, 16, 16, 17, those years, and then it's gone down. And then, of course, through the COVID years, we weren't able to spend very much money, and we've gone a little bit of money the last couple of years. We've done a large variety of things with those services as well, which I think Stephen talked about. And then this year, we are coming to also to ask to continue our funding so that we can continue the work that we've been doing in the community. And we're also asking potentially for more money this year to start a pilot program that we think could be really beneficial for some of our youth. And Amanda's going to introduce that idea and talk to you about that. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Can I get the spelling of your last name?
Yes, it is HANISKO.
Hello, thank you for letting us be here today and present to you. My name is Amanda Berryhill with the California Health Collaborative. I'm also a member of the Tobacco Education Council for about, I think, at least 6 years now that I've been part of this. As Anna mentioned, vaping is a huge problem within our community, within our youth particularly. As professionals in the community health field and tobacco prevention field, we hear so many stories, especially from and about our youth, right? They're hearing it from parents, professionals within the education system, and it's scary what you hear. The addiction rates are just absolutely through the roof right now, and even, when we hear, oh, we don't see as much vaping this year as last year, there's new products on the market that are easier to hide. They're the ones that go in your lip. It's called Zyn, is the most popular brand. It was a flavored product, though they're not supposed to be sold in California anymore. Those products are still available and they're extreme nicotine amounts. That's what's contributing to these really high addiction rates. So what we would like to introduce is a pilot program with YREKA Union School District. We chose that school because that's where we've identified the most gap in services for tobacco prevention and intervention for students that are either caught vaping, have an addiction problem, or are considered at risk through a risk assessment that they are completing through that district. We would like to use the Stanford curriculum, which is standard throughout our county, thanks to Anna, to implement a tobacco and nicotine program to prevent use, but also to intervene for addicted youth. Young people are telling us that they use nicotine to cope. Addiction is not a coping skill that youth should have. We should be teaching them positive coping skills and support youth who are struggling with this issue. And we would like to do it with this program. We would like to request that the board allocate $25,000 to the Tobacco Education Council to implement this pilot program. Eventually, we would really like this program to be throughout the county of Siskiyou, but we have to start somewhere, and we know that funding can be really difficult to obtain. So we thought that we would be able to serve the students of the school district, starting with that amount, and then hopefully find additional funding through either grants or through foundations to expand this throughout Siskiyou County, because we know YREKA's Union School District is not the only place having trouble with this, and we really want to expand that, but this is a starting place for us. Any questions for any of us? We're available.
Thank you for your presentation, and thank you for clarifying that you are the Tobacco Council that we have given in the past, because I wasn't quite sure as you rolled out what you were presenting. I'll bring it back to the board here in a minute. I guess one of the difficulties I will have is this board has targeted YREKA for homeless dollars to the tune of $600,000 over the next 2 years. We're a board of supervisors for the entire county, and I get a little uptight about targeting just certain areas, and so I'll have difficulty with that. I'll let you know that up front. And I don't know that you'll get my support for just a pilot program. It has to go countywide. But more disturbing to me is that we focus on tobacco, and yet drugs and alcohol are a huge problem in our schools, and nobody comes here asking for money for that. And I think it's not that tobacco isn't a problem, but I would like to see a combination of tobacco, alcohol, and drugs. For me, it's encouraging to hear that tobacco products are not allowed on our school campuses, but yet we can't get permission for the sheriff's office to take a drug dog through our schools, and that's disturbing for me. So, that's kind of where I'm at, and I'll bring it back to our board, and see what anybody else has to say. Anyone else?
You had brought up the question of the schools aren't allowing the dogs in the school.
Some schools, yeah.
Well, some schools. Yeah, I know that your program touches various projects and funded through the partnership with the Health and Human Services. Yeah, I'm also interested, of course, countywide, that aspect to it, what that would look like skilled out and all those sorts of factors. Cost of funding, the 25,000 from the county, would that be the whole, what you're requesting? Is that addition to what's already been funded? Is that in addition to your current request for funding also?
No, I think we're imagining that to be like the annual amount for the next fiscal year. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. You clarified my question, it's perfect. And then are the schools willing to match in regards?
That's a good question. This board has really tried to function as its entity where we as individual employees are coming to volunteer to try and to bolster the efforts of what's happening in various efforts on a kind of community level when we all come together to collaborate. And so we honestly hadn't thought of that route at that point in time. We were more thinking about like, what is this collaborative board doing that is trying to amplify the other efforts that are going on with each individual agency that's coming forward.
Perfect. Yeah. And in regards to a pilot program, of course, I'm interested countywide, but you have to walk before you can run. And so if it is a pilot program, I would be interested to see how that would be rolled out through what the timeline is for the rest of the county. So if you are thinking of this YREKA this time, on year 2025, it'll be also next school, year 2026, these schools as well. And then like YREKA, of course, there's a large population here. You get outside, there's a smaller population, how that would roll out in more rural areas.
Yeah, if I may add to that a little bit about the countywide efforts, as well as your comment about including drugs and alcohol. So the funding that we received through Prop 56 for our tobacco education programs that Anna and I have are limited to tobacco. The MSA dollars are open, so we can absolutely include other drugs and alcohol and mental health and, really try to treat the whole person within this program. So that is absolutely possible. The reason why we are suggesting starting with YREKA is just because we were concerned with the amount of money it costs to do countywide, and we're trying to be considerate of budget. However, I have talked with the Ford Family Foundation and the Connell Foundation about this issue, about potential match. If we could get enough dollars to do this countywide, because in reality it takes staff time. We need a person to be able to go to all of these schools and talk with the youth and have the time to be there. So if we can secure enough funding to be able to do that, absolutely countywide is possible. We started with YREKA because that was where the gap was within services that exist already. And they have a lot of students, so we wanted to be able to serve a wide variety. But absolutely, we'd really love to expand this. It's, that just depends on amount of money to be able to staff somebody.
Yeah, in my regard, this pilot, the rollout would be future years for different schools. And I see this more as the seed money.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
More as the seed money. Kind of can't fund the whole program. Or as a seed money to bring somebody.
Absolutely.
And with a lot of prevention programs, one thing I'll just add real quick too is there is a focus now on being able to, it's not just like, here are the facts about tobacco and nicotine and why they might be harmful to your health. And they are really expanding a lot more into the neuroscience of addiction and, how the different receptors in your brain are affected once you start using a substance that is addictive when your brain is not fully developed. And it talks about the social influences they're getting as well as what are the social emotional factors that are coming into play in terms of, is this person dealing, with really hard circumstances in their life and they're trying to use it as a coping mechanism, and what are healthy coping mechanisms. So even though it might just be about one particular product, it does start to touch into the other areas of a young person's life and what is going on, and that does carry over into other substances. And I just throw it out there too. I know there's a group of us that would be happy to talk about all the other prevention efforts that are going on with cannabis and alcohol between there and behavioral health. And the county office also has a health educator that is working on fentanyl and drug prevention information as well. And so I know that is a huge concern. So I hear you, and it is very valid. And so we'd be happy to potentially come back and talk about topics another time as well.
Just one more thing about the schools. We are working with the schools countywide. Last year, we brought Friday Night Live groups back to the county. We have a group at Wheat High School that the resource centers work with that concentrates on anti-vaping. And the other schools are all starting up their own standalone chapters. I'm meeting with Dunsmere High School next week to get a chapter started there in the fall. But the kids are really being proactive and wanting to lead the charge of eliminating tobacco products from their schools. They don't feel safe going in the bathrooms. They don't feel safe. They feel like they're being bullied at school if they don't vape. So we are doing our best to work with these other organizations and kids to help support them as well.
Anyone else?
Sure. Who made the flyer? One of my pet peeves is, and it seems like to me it's buried in the bottom, is that Siskiyou County ranked 56 or 58. This is something I've been on the soapbox since I've been a supervisor. And I look at all the money that we spend and we brought in, and we're not moving the needle.
Yeah.
So I think, to me, you got to blow this up and think of another way. I get the pilot program. I think I've been involved in one too many pilot programs, and we're not moving the needle. And I think we got to think about it from a different perspective. What that is, I don't know. But all I do know is we have the best water and the best air, and we're at 56 out of 58 counties, and that's unacceptable to me, quite honestly. My wife works at Dunsmere Elementary. You know, I see a lot of social issues there with the lack of parenting, quite honestly. And I think there's other ways to attack this than just going after teenage kids going into vaping or whatever. Drugs and alcohol have been, when I was in high school back in the 70s, for God's sake, that's always been around. I think we steer these kids to better alternatives. Again, I don't know what the answer is, but I do know that as much as I kind of share Supervisor Cobb's concerns about funding, you know, maybe YREKA is not the location. Maybe it's Doris, Dunsmere, so take a small bite at the apple, try to influence change. Again, I don't know, but I do see all the money that we brought in, and I haven't seen a needle move. So I'm a little suspect there. You kind of allude, you know, and I think this is a societal thing. One of the things that I think is really unfortunate, so as Cobb said, you're on first five, they tied the funding to tobacco funds. It's like, so do you want us to get rid of tobacco, or do you want us to keep funding first five? We should disconnect that. And I think the same thing, we talk about funding, we need to look at it from a different perspective. So I just want that as input. I'm still open to a pilot program, but I think it, you know, again, 56 out of 58. So I would like to see that instead of here in a bullet point, because I think that has more relevant value to parents, grandparents, those kind of people. That's my input.
You guys are open.
So many things are running through my mind. I would love to see a program that actually produces a solid, number one, data that you can come back with and say, we helped this many people. We have this many success stories. Instead of a really pretty piece of paper with, you know, numbers that are marginal. Maybe Doris is a place to do it. Maybe a smaller community with kids at risk that you can really quantify. That you have a huge impact on instead of 5 out of 1,000. You have 5 out of 50. It's a way bigger number. With a working, successful program that you can come back to us and say, we came up with this program and it worked, and these are the kids that we helped, and their families are better, and these kids are better, and they're shiny and happy and moving forward with their lives. Instead of yeah, this seems to be kind of okay, but I want to see collaboration with these different agencies. I want to see, you know, progress in a really forward way that you can come back and say, we can take this project and move it forward to all these different areas. And, you know, use, whether it's grant funding, we've got McConnell, we've got Ford, whoever, and this is a project that we can take and be proud of and move forward throughout the county. Not just like, yeah, we kind of used up that $25,000 and we're not exactly sure what we can do with it. I want you to come back here with numbers, with progress, with people that you've actually helped, instead of like, yeah, we kind of have it. Does that make sense to you? I mean, it's tangible.
I just do a follow-up real quick. So I would love to see, you tell me that you're partnered with the DARE program, those kind of things. I think you can, you know, you can leverage all that you can bring in to try to move this needle, as I've said before. So, thank you.
Supervisor Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So actually, I wouldn't turn down the programs for Doris until late or McLeod. I'd be remiss in District 1. We think of the YREKA School District. YREKA Union High School District actually takes in Copco, Montague, Little Shasta, I think Hornbrook, Grenada. So when we think about it, I respect the opposite's concern about putting in YREKA. I don't mean to challenge that. But it actually encompasses more than just the city of YREKA. It takes in parts of District 1 and the other districts as well. So it's not just YREKA centric. I'd be remiss in not advocating for Little Shasta and Montague and Copco too.
Absolutely. So I think one of the caveats that this board needs to remember is that when we have funded Tobacco Council in the past, it's been for countywide. And that's the only way I could support it. The DARE program, as good as it is, only goes to schools that will accept it. All schools don't. So as much as we can paint a picture of what programs we have that are good, we have to remember that some of our schools won't accept some of these programs. And to me, the schools need to ante up as well. The Siskiyou County Board of Education member, the new superintendent, Alan Carver, has committed $100,000 to First Five for school readiness. Those are the kind of partnerships that we need to be dealing with versus just the county putting dollars on the line. I'll remind you as well that this board for our county and services that are going to be provided for 24-25 are already looking at a 5% reduction across the board. So where we can find money to hit countywide, I'm there.
So if I can just interject.
Sure.
So I see where you're going, and I do believe more in a countywide thing. But you're involved with Family Resource Center. I mean, the DARE program, you know, Dunsboro Elementary does allow the thing. I think maybe you look where you can concentrate and get a bigger value out of it, and then prove that it's working there. Data centric. I mean, and I quite honestly think you need to start at a younger age, 6th grade and up. You know, once you know, just too long since I'm a teenager to think, you know, you're already starting moving down whatever path that is, college, sports, you know, and then the devices that come along with that. So I think I would like to see a different tack instead of we're going to try another pilot program that with all the money that we spent, I'm still at 56 out of 58 counties. That's not working for me at this moment in time. So thank you.
One of the other challenges that we're up against with MSHA funding through Prop 51 is preventative money is gone under that proposition. A lot of voters didn't understand that, but yet it was a very close vote. And if you look at the map, most of California voted against that, except a few counties. And what it means is for, you know, Steve, I know with the collaborative, you do great work there. And please, my comments are not related to the work that you can produce. I'm just trying to keep us, I guess, focused. But that preventative dollars that go away is going to potentially hit our family resource centers to the tune of $800,000 to $1.2 million per year that is no longer available. And I don't know how we're going to deal with that because right now there's no flexibility to come and backfill that at this point. So the challenge is greater than, I think, than just, asking for the 25,000 that you're asking for today. I'm okay with the amount of contribution that we have, I think, already budgeted. Beyond that, I don't know what did I say something wrong? Go ahead.
Yes.
Okay.
Angela Davis, County Administrator. We are currently in the process of reviewing the 24-25 county budget. And yes, there is a 5% reduction for county departments, but we're also reviewing the contributions to others that with an additional 5% or even greater than that, because we do have to take care of county first, our home first. So it may be greater than 5% for contributions to others, depending upon how we're able to process.
How it shakes out. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. But I guess where I'm at is what we've contributed in the past, whatever that is, it's not been 25,000.
Correct.
I think last year
2,500.
So I'm just saying, I've been okay with that. I know we've been up to as high as 10,000, but I'm willing to take the request and we can look at it, but I'm just telling you, unless the program is countywide, I won't support it. I don't know how else to say that. So I don't know what, there is no action on this. I think this is just a direction item. Is that correct?
No, it requests.
Give requests, discuss the direction to staff is the way I'm reading that.
Regarding the Tobacco Education Council request to allocate funds to the Siskiyou Tobacco Education Council.
Right.
So it does have a directive.
Supervisor Chris, go ahead.
In regards to contribution to others, we actually told our Rob and Peter to be Paul. And so it already goes towards the contribution to others, already has a contribution at this point in time, the family resource centers throughout the county, those youth programs, as well as libraries, which serves a role as well. So as we look at that pot of funding that went with the deal, I hate to rob from it and undermine even efforts of tobacco donation.
If this is a recommended motion, and I don't know that it really is, it doesn't say 25,000. It's just basically a direction, right?
Correct.
So what's the board's wishes on this?
So I would say this, I think that the timing is poor here. We're going through a tough budget. All you gotta do is look at the state, follow it all the way down. So I would go back to the drawing board, come up with a better plan, if you will, something a little bit more defined, and a specific request. I think we need to wait till probably September for final budget. That gives you some time and leeway, who you can partner with, tell me that we have someone else's money that's coming in that we can maybe help match or offset type of thing. I'm certainly open to that. But I can't support moving forward at this time, knowing the uncertainty when it comes to the budget.
Is there other information that you guys would like in the future in terms of youth prevention and education when it comes to substance use? What would be the most beneficial for you as a board to know in terms of what type of presentation or information would you feel would really be valuable in the future to understand the breadth of the youth problem as well as the variety of community resources that are involved with trying to address the problem?
I am more targeted to outcomes and solutions versus just pilot or opportunities. I mean, I know the education piece is critical, but as Supervisor Valenzuela said, we still rank 56 out of 58, and that needle hasn't moved.
Right, because there's
Ever,
many
ever,
components
ever.
that go into making
So
yes.
when you can bring something to us that is a countywide, or at least for me, countywide, that's going to move that needle and show an outcome, you'll gain my interest. How's that? Anyone else?
More specifics about what programs are in place or what you're looking at to produce programs. What are your goals? What are your expectations? What successes you've already had? What are those numbers? What's the data? How many kids you serve? What are your plans to serve? where you're going to do it, what's your capacity, who you have working for you, who are you working with, those kinds of things.
Thank you.
Supervisor Chris?
And I think also the resilience, thank you for your presentation. I know we can't solve it for 25 or 10, but in regards to the coordination of efforts, resiliency in your program, we talked about this, the state budget's going to go up and down, different agencies. So the partnerships that you have, you said McConnell, Ford, those sorts of things, but the resiliency in your program, because I'd hate to invest 1 year and then just have to be forced to set my successor would have to cut it next year. But resiliency is your program.
Do you have all that we can give you at this point?
Yeah, we have a lot of that data and those partnerships, so that would be part of it together. So.
Right. Yes, all of that you're speaking about are all through collaborations. For this presentation, we really focus on what just tech itself has done with the funding that you've supported us, but we have so many other collaborations that we can definitely highlight in a future presentation. And just to be certain, you said that budget will be finalized in September, so you'd like us to come back before September to.
It gives you opportunity to come back with something.
Yes, okay, because we can outline, and in that time, I can try to connect with these other foundations to see if we can make this a countywide effort and if we can fund something like that. And also, if you'd be interested, California Health Collaborative does have this program in Fresno area, so I can pull some data for how successful it has been already for them, so that we can get some data there as well.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And so maybe we'll follow up. I can give you some more ideas down there. No, Justin. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Is Graham coming? The note I have is he'll be here at 11:30.
Yes.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, just want to make sure I don't want to hold you up in case you're it, the only one, so, okay, all right, good. Let's move on to item 6B, the FEMA. Good morning.
My name is Quinn Tsai. I'm a civil engineer, and I work with the FEMA risk analysis branch. And today we talk about the map revision, the flood map. I'll go over quickly the flood study overview, revised product, flood insurance impact, flood capacity, and the question and answer later on. We're going to have this details presentation this afternoon under our consultation coordination officers meeting at the 4 Jones, 1 p.m. Just give you an idea of the timeline. This project started in 2020, even before my time as a FEMA. And now in 2024, and the project will finish by 2025. It usually takes 3 to 10 years, and this one is 5 years. So this is considered a small project for this kind of study. What it does is they go through the request first, go to the hydrology study, and then go to the post-preliminary coordination meetings today. And after that, we go to community outreach and go into the appeal process and officialize it and finalize the product. Please. And just show you the result, the difference between before and after. You see on the left is black and white, and on the right is all the detailed study that we did it for last, the change between 2011 and 2024. And we include the 500-year flood study, the brown area, those new study that because the climate change, we add on the new studies. And instead of only 100-year flood event, we're going up to 500-year now. Next slide, please. What is affected? The effect is the insurance rate from high risk zone A or zone A. The moderate risk shade area zone X, and the low risk and shade zone X. Well, we want to make sure that people knows that when it's rain, it's flood. So people think that why you're doing this in a sunny day. We do this because we want to prevent things change. And what is high risk area? High risk areas have a percentage happening once in 100 years. And people think, wow, this is nothing. But things happen all the time. People build the highway, changing the topography and the water moving. And so you're thinking you're safe, but next thing you know, you're in the flood zone. Because
Is dam removal part of that equation?
everything.
Okay.
Everything, structure removal, construction, highway construction, and levee. Some people build a burn and things that doesn't impact anybody, it impact downstream because you move the direction of flow. Next, please. The moderate risk is the shaded area. The place has it's 0.2%, which is translated to 500-year flood, or it's 1%, 100-year flood with a water depth less than 1 foot. So those are considered moderate risk. So please, the low risk is unshaded. It's like out of 500-year flood zone. So you don't really have mandatory flood insurance. You don't really need that. But it's good to know what you are and what can happen. Like we mentioned before, some area that people build a burn to protect their own. But what happens is that burn is long enough, it changes the direction of the flow and impact the downstream stuff. Okay, the flood insurance basically, I'm not a flood insurance expert, but this is just some idea. We have in-house expert if you need it. It's a 100-year flood. It's mandatory, and in the zone A and zone A, non-mandatory if it's a 500-year flood zone. So by this new study, there's a potential for insurance saving because if you the detailed study, we're using all the latest topography, LiDAR, or also we're using both survey if necessary. We see structure there, we do a survey, make sure when they do the hydraulic study, the cross-section support is updated. So the water survey elevation changing accordingly. Well, these are the flood insurance options. You can go up, you can go down, or maintain the same. So all depends what is the study shows. So this is why we have an appeal period. For people there's an impact, they can look at it and challenge. So your result is not good enough. Why? We show you why, because you have a structure or you have changing of the topography. Why are some flood zone changing? I just mentioned to you before, because things change. You build a new freeway, changing the topography, or you build a new factory, or things, and the land use from agricultural land to industrial land, and that obstruct the whole flow pattern. Some people think my house never flooded. As I mentioned earlier, things can change. From, most people thinking that they're not, but 25% of flood insurance claim in the U.S. is outside the map in high risk. People thinking that I'm in the low risk, I don't need it. But statistics show that 25% the flood insurance claim is outside the map of high risk. So just going to echo in the result. This is the result. The data shows that. Next, please. Okay, if you have any question, I don't answer, I can answer, or you have a future, you can email me, call me, and we have an in-house expert to answer any questions.
Are you working with our community development director and our OES deputy director?
We have a contact with them.
Are you working with them?
I'm not myself because I just joined this 6 months ago.
And because this will be finished, it looked like on 2025.
Yes,
We've been told that the new mapping for the Klamath with regard to dam removal won't be for at least another 3 years.
that will be done. Again, slides before, please. Oh, no, just one, just one. Okay, you see that? Roma, there's letter of mapping revision. You can request to change it. You can update it. You can request the FEMA that we have major changes. We need an update. Then we go through the process.
So I think the last time we had a FEMA representative via online for this board, no one with regard to the Klamath Renewal Corporation, that project in dam removal had put in an application for what I think you're talking about here.
Well, again, if it's within the, see, we cannot hold the project within the, like, say 3 years, and then the removal. So that would hold in the project for 3 years until certainty.
But meanwhile, we have homes that have been destroyed for fire that are trying to be rebuilt. And the floodplain could determine the height of the foundation. And they're not waiting 3 years. So how do we deal with that?
Well, we just, right now, we're using the best we have. Like you said, it's a burden. So if it's showing, we take into consideration. We have a similar case in Southern California. They want to build a new burn, for instance. And they say, we got a budget all done. We're going to build this in next year. And the project is supposed to be finished. The whole project is supposed to finish next year. So, like I say, it's right there. But this is 3 years, this is the same year, pretty much, 1 year after. So we're holding a little bit because it's a limited time and we can adjust it. But if it's 3 years down the road, we're not pushing too far. So we look into and talk to the county and, like you said, make sure what status they are. Are they firm, 3 years to move, or they just study? So those are things that could be discussed and talked about.
So before I bring it to the board for questions, Mr. Dean or Mr. Shannoni, do you have any comments or questions for this presentation? No? Okay. Elizabeth, you, oh, I'm sorry. Thought you were telling me Graham was here.
Elizabeth Nielsen, Deputy County Administrator. I just want to clarify for the board and for the public that this process is separate from the process that will occur several years following dam removal, where the Klamath River corridor will be reassessed, should be reassessed by FEMA to incorporate new floodplain mapping. The only areas that are impacted by this effort right now are within Scott Valley. Community Development did review the maps and they did confirm that there are no changes to the Klamath River corridor right now. So I just want to make that distinction since we have had several discussions about flooding, or potential flooding following dam removal, that will be a separate effort. And Chair Cobsep is correct. To our knowledge, KRC has not submitted a request to complete that. That will occur following dam removal.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And are we in agreement with regard to what's being proposed in the Scott Valley? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you know for the question.
Supervisor Chris.
Yeah, I just had a question in regards, thanks for coming before us. You got a full 6 months underneath your belt, so you're the
I have a 40.
But wonderful, in regards to, I'm thinking of other areas a little broader than Scott, just for this question. Is there sources of funding within FEMA for people that may be within a flood zone, grants or funding to put in berms or other things that would remove them from a flood zone, or their programs through FEMA?
That's a good question because FEMA has a mitigation program, right? So if it's part of a county mitigation plan, each time there has a disaster, the state reserves certain amount of money for the FEMA disaster for that purpose. Especially the mitigation program is a 5-year program that all the county maintain that. So if it's part of it, yes.
Okay,
So make sure it's in a part of the mitigation program.
right, sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Supervisor Hoover, anything?
I'm good.
Supervisor Valenzuela? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We're at item 6C. Oh, no, sorry, we're gonna hold that one until 11:30.
Can we take a little break? And I'll-
Sure. We'll take 5.
Audio here, thank you.
of these agenda items for some people that are having traffic difficulty getting here, so bear with me. It's not going to be in the order that you see. So just follow with me. Is that all right? And if not, okay. That's it. So let's go to 7A. Should not be a long one. Let's take that one. Airports.
Morning, Joy Hall, Director of Regional Services, here to give my weekly update on airports. We are in our 7th week of construction at the Weed Airport. In the last couple of weeks, they have been doing some compaction and QA testing, and they continue to lay the conduit out there. They also have started to lay the grindings in anticipation for the first lay of asphalt today. So yeah, that's great. Siskiyou County Airport renovations on the bathroom are continuing, and we have done some weed abatement out there in expectation of weed spraying next week. And as far as the Happy Camp Airport, we will meet on the 30th to go over the starting of the event and work to talk about it. That's all I have for you today.
So one of the things that I think I've emailed you a little bit about on Weed Airport, the hangars that will be getting conduit for potential electricity future. I think it's just the east side hangars, I'll call it.
Yeah.
But what is the hang up?
There is conduit that's going to be coming behind the backside of the larger hangars that they'll be able to.
So if I'm at the FBO looking north, basically, you've got east side and west side, okay? So west side, will they have the ability for future electric or not?
Yes.
So all of the hangars will have that capability?
Mm-hmm. Not the T hangars.
Large ones. Sorry.
Not the T hangars, just the large ones right now.
But
it'll
will
be
the line
coming
be going?
here where the windsock is.
Yes.
It'll be coming up from there and then going, there's a little taxiway there. It's gonna be coming back across that way over. So according to my conduit map, it'll be for the back side and that front side right there, but not the T hangars.
Oh, T hangars are which ones? The
They're
ones
green
on the
ones.
west?
They're the ones more north. So the south ones.
So where it crosses, that's the limitation.
Yes.
Those out will not have these south will.
Correct.
Potentially.
Yes.
Very helpful, thank you. All right, now I got it. The map, I wasn't sure what you were telling me.
Sorry.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the board? And I know we're moving on the Weed Airport. We're moving along fairly quickly, yes? Great, thank you. Appreciate it. Any public comment? Anybody online? I want to make sure in case there's anybody in house.
Showing online.
Okay, all right, thank you. Let's go on to let's do 7C. I think I have a public comment on that one, so let's do that one. 7C is county administration with regard to the emergency deck.
Good morning, board members. Elizabeth Nielsen, Deputy County Administrator. On March 26th, the Board of Supervisors approved a resolution proclaiming a local state of emergency for impacts resulting from the Klamath Dam removal activities, specifically impacts resulting from water quality and potential air quality impacts. The intent and purpose of this proclamation is to document impacts resulting from dam removal and to urge the state of California to assist the county by performing regular water quality and air quality testing and monitoring. The proclamation also creates a distinctive and definitive record of water and air quality concerns, requests made by the county, and response by the state. The board takes very seriously protecting its citizens and those who recreate in Siskiyou County, and we are exploring every opportunity to ensure this. On April 12th, following a commitment from the Klamath River Renewal Corporation to perform one round of water quality testing on the Klamath River, the county received a statement of procedures for this testing. On May 1st, county staff from the Environmental Health Department were present with KRRC's contractors during the water sampling on the Klamath River. The samples were taken at the same locations as the county sampling earlier this year, and for the same constituents as the county's testing, which includes a range of heavy metals. In addition, and in response to community concerns, water samples were also taken near the Copco Bridge above Copco Dam and immediately below Iron Gate at the boat ramp. Although I had hoped to have those results by today's meetings, we are 1 to 2 weeks out from the water quality reporting and analysis. We will be sure to post the results and the analysis to our website and distribute these documents once they are available. We are going to continue to ask the state to perform regular water quality testing, as KRC had only committed to 1 round of testing, and the board's direction still stands to the county to perform quarterly water quality testing. In late April, the county's Air Pollution Control District received 2 EBAM Plus air monitors from the California Air Resources Board, or CARB. 1 EBAM was deployed within the project area last week, and the second will be deployed this week. The EBAMs were not equipped with modems, meaning that the Air Pollution Control District staff is required to manually go out and pull this data and then report this data. Modems allow them to secure the data on a routine basis without having to go out to the site. We are continuing to work with state representatives and through the assembly member and senators' offices to try and secure monitors, as this does, it's more preferable to have modems out there. In addition, the purple air monitors that were deployed in March are still in operation. The public can go to purpleair.com, use the drop-down arrow for map in the header of the website, and click on real-time map to view the monitors. This morning, each purple air monitor recorded a reading between 0 and 50, which is satisfactory, meaning that air quality poses little or no risk within 24 hours of exposure. I would like to thank our Air Pollution Control District staff for deploying the EBAM pluses out on site. And I would also like to thank our environmental health staff who went out on site to be present during the water quality testing performed by KRRC's contractors. Lastly, I'd like to report that at the board's direction, environmental RICDing with community development has reached out to our local cooperative extension office to see if there's funding available to perform testing on livestock, and the extension office is pursuing that funding, although we don't have a guarantee for that funding at this time. With that, the direction in front of the board today is to either approve or extend the proclamation with direction for the clerk to bring it back every 60 days. And I'm open to any questions from the board.
Thank you. Board comments, questions? Well, before I go there, I'm sorry. Mr. Leach, you have a public comment on this one. And I apologize, I had you down for 6B on the FEMA. Did you still want to make a public comment on that one or no?
Already talked to the FEMA guy.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so do you want to come up for this one? And again, I apologize, I missed that one. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is James Leach. I've been on my time with Rural College University. While monitoring the water quality is all great, I don't know why we haven't had any sludge testing done. The sludge is all over the bottom of the river. My sludge report indicates a lot of heavy metals that are not in the water column. The heavy metals are attached to the sludge. When the sludge settles out, the heavy metals come down with it. The problem we have now is all the sediment from Copco 1 is now behind Iron Gate Dam. When they get down to the bottom, there's a coffer dam that was used to divert water into the tunnel. When they destroy all that coffer dam and put the river back, all the sediment that came from Cobb Cove 1 and Iron Gate is gonna come down the Klamath River. They don't have enough water to flush it out. So it's gonna settle in probably the first 5 or 10 miles. I personally feel that you should push to have testing done before they remove the coffer dam and find out if there's really hot spots back there or not. When the flood gets to my house, I would estimate it diluted by at least tenfold, maybe more, because it's spread out down the whole river. If there's a huge pocket up there behind Iron Gate Dam, we're not gonna know about it, because they're just gonna flush it out and let it go. But if we don't get testing done before they do that, you better believe I'm gonna be there testing them when it comes out the other end of the dam. Because I think that's too late. Because in the estimated 100-year floodplain, my property will be flooded with 4 feet of water, 3 feet in my house. And during that first 100-year flood, that's when all that sediment's gonna come down on us. And it's gonna be deposited everywhere there's a slow spot. Anywhere in that 100-year floodplain, which includes Highway 96. They proposed that Highway 96 is gonna go underwater by the Swallows and by our house. And I know they never told you that when they proposed it. But that's where I'm at. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. So, Ms. Nielsen, you're recommending the extension of this, correct?
Correct.
But the other thing I want to know, I thought somebody was testing the sludge or the sediment part of this. Am I incorrect in that?
I am not aware that sludge in the bottom of the river has been tested. I believe it's only been Klamath River water testing and confirmed by Mr. Dean.
And should that be something that we push up the ladder?
We can certainly push that at
It
the
sounds
state
like
level.
it. It
Correct.
sounds like it.
I will certainly push that.
So
Go ahead.
to that point, I believe that they did do core sampling before the project.
Yeah.
So there was sampling done.
Correct. So KRRC did perform core testing prior to any dam removal activities. As far as any sludge testing in the river or during these activities, the county hasn't performed any. I'm not aware that KRRC has, but we will push that.
I think that's something you can look back to see what they did to lead up to. There was, I know there was specifically was core testing.
Correct.
But I think Mr. Lee brings up a valid point.
Oh, yeah. No,
To test what's there before it's released, not unlike what we did with, water quality was a problem after the fact. This could be something that could be proactive, so.
Correct.
Okay, sure. Anyone else? Then I'm looking for action to extend.
So moved to extend.
Second.
Is there an addition to your request to extend?
There's, yes, to extend and direct the clerk to bring back the proclamation every 60 days.
Kind of a follow-up question.
Sure, go ahead.
So, Ms. Nielsen?
Yes.
So we do not have any follow-up water testing from when we first did.
We have the results from our February testing, the testing that was performed in early May. We do not have the results.
That's the one specific. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, Supervisor Valenzuela?
No.
Excuse me, Supervisor Chris?
I'll be an aye.
Supervisor Ogren? Aye. And Supervisor Copsett?
Aye. CSAC is all here?
Yes.
I hear. Is that right?
Yes.
We'll go on with the CSAC. Good morning.
Hi. Okay, make it quick. You're late.
Sure, from my side.
He knows my rule too.
For the first time in my life, I abided by the speed limit. Good morning to you all. I'm Graham Panaus. I'm the CEO of the California State Association of Counties, and I'm delighted to be in your board chambers, which I think actually is my first time, notwithstanding being in your county many times. I'm going to spend a few moments talking about who we are as an organization, what we are working on your behalf, and then we will celebrate Supervisor Valenzuela in terms of the work that he has done on behalf of himself, our organization, and your community. CSAC has been around for a very long time, 130 years. And in all of that time, our job has remained basically the same, which is to support supervisors in lifting up their communities, and however you define that. And so that is functionally about ensuring that every community has the resources, the authority, and the flexibility to do things in a way that makes sense to them. And that is different in Siskiyou than it is in Merced, than it is in San Diego, and that is exactly as it should be. Your communities are different, your resources are different, the things that you want to focus on are also not the same, and we celebrate that and want to ensure that you are equipped with the tools to be able to most successfully meet the needs of your community. That's our core. And we've been doing that over the past several weeks related to the legislature and the governor's initial proposed budget and the revision, which just came out, focusing on a few core issues. One, broadband, ensuring that connectivity happens in every community in California. There's both a state level issue related to this. We were the lead in, along with a number of other partners, in getting the largest investment in the country towards broadband just a couple of years ago. Some of that is being walked back in the May revision, and we don't want that to occur. We want to ensure that communities can be connected because that is core to economic mobility, it's core to education, it's core to participating in the 21st century economy and healthcare system. We want to make sure that that is in place in every community of the state per the priorities adopted by our board, which Supervisor Valenzuela sits on. So that's core. There's a federal piece to that as well that we continue to work on related to the Affordable Connectivity Program and ensuring the Congress extends funding for that, as it is critical for areas that have now gotten broadband into the community, but where it's not affordable, where you only have one option. So I want to make sure that gets resolved. Homelessness, we continue to work on. We have the most comprehensive plan in the country to address homelessness, which is about ensuring state level responsibility, county level responsibility, and city level responsibility. All are necessary, but ultimately, if we're not all working together, then we are all not moving in the most expeditious manner forward in terms of making progress. So that is their public lands and protecting them as much as possible. Your county is one of a number that has made investment in the National Center on Public Lands, which is about ensuring that those counties that are heavily dependent on payment in lieu of taxes or secure rural schools, both significant revenue sources to this county, that those dollars are first protected and second, fully recognize what the impacts are to your communities, which they currently do not. And so you probably get 10 cents on the dollar, but the impacts are of publicly owned lands in your community. And we want to ensure that at the congressional level that is changed and you have full mitigation for the impacts that are happening in this beautiful county where many folks come. There are impacts as they spend time on the public lands, and those mitigations should be addressed. As a kid that grew up in Humboldt, not too far away, protecting rural lands is core to who I am. That's what I did when I was a kid, is run around in those areas and want to make sure that those are protected in this current role. Insurance and non-renewal is a growing problem, certainly here, but also in other parts of the state, and that is something that we want to ensure gets appropriately addressed. It is creating substantial impacts on your community. You're all heavily involved in that issue, and we want to continue to ensure that there are options for your community so that those who choose to live in Siskiyou have an opportunity to have appropriate insurance in covering their homes. We continue connected to that. We continue to work on resiliency-related issues, wildfire-related protection, ensuring that there is appropriate management of the forests, which often has not been the case, and also that there's investments related to vegetation management and other things to ensure that your community is as protected as possible. So those are the core advocacy-related issues that we continue to work on. It's true that there's a horrible state budget deficit, and it's also true that the budget is a reflection of values, and it's also true that if the things that I just articulated are at the top of the list, which they are at the state level as well, then there's certainly funding for that. There may not be funding for all other things, but there's certainly funding for those things that are considered most important. And the items that I just referenced have continued to be referenced at the state level in terms of their priorities. So we want to ensure that that occurs, and also that counties are not left holding the bag in addressing and being the solution to what are state budget related issues. And so folks will hear a lot about this term admin and admin costs, and we should just trim admin costs. And in the case of counties, which are the primary service provider for the state for primarily mandated health and human services programs, administration equals county employees and partners delivering services to your community. And so admin is child welfare and protecting families. Admin is ensuring that those who are eligible for programs in your community actually receive what they're eligible for. And without admin, there's no program. So we want to make sure that that is protected as part of core services in this particular state budget. Beyond that work, CSAC has a robust California Counties Foundation, and that foundation has both our CSAC Institute, which continues to be the national model for county leadership and policy development. And thanks to Supervisor Valenzuela, who has been on that board on multiple occasions for his efforts and stewardship in there. He also is a past president of CSAC as an organization. And one of the things that he was the primary leader in creating was our CSAC Grants Initiative. And the Grants Initiative comes from the reality that in many rural communities, there is not the capacity to apply for federal dollars and state dollars, but largely federal dollars, particularly in this environment where there have been more federal dollars available in recent years for infrastructure, for broadband that I referenced, for transportation, and a whole host of other things that are relevant to your community. And they all require having some capacity to write and submit a grant that is competitive against other local governments across the country. And so the Grants Initiative was specifically designed to create that capacity, to partner with counties that may not have that in-house capacity to attract those dollars and to bring those dollars down to your communities. And so there are half a dozen counties that are participating in it already. Imperial was the first out of the gate, and that is hopefully will turn into a great return on investment for counties that don't have the internal capacity, but where your needs in your community are probably far greater than they are in other places. And we want to assist with scale and with ensuring that those competitive dollars come to your community when they are out there. So that's a particularly important thing. On the whole, when we think about who we are as an organization and what we do on your behalf, I want to thank this board because in my role, I have the opportunity to work for all 296 supervisors in California. And so the four of you and Supervisor Help are my bosses, along with 291 other supervisors in other counties. And CSAC is proud to be able to have that connection with folks because it makes us stronger as an organization whose board is primarily rural. And we have an executive committee that leans more urban, but our board is very rural, and that is by design. It's by design because notwithstanding where the population centers are in California, every county should have the same voice on our board informing what priorities we are pursuing on your behalf and how we are telling your story. And so we will continue to do that, and certainly always open to any dialogue that the board may wish to have. But before, well, perhaps I'll pause. I'll even take a breath, and I'll see if the board has any questions or comments about those items before transitioning over to the credential presentation.
Supervisor Chris, anything?
No, I appreciate everything that CSAC's done and your work for all of our counties and supervisors. I have no questions specific.
Same. I enjoy every time I go to a CSAC meeting. It's always very informative, and I really appreciate all the work that you do for the counties, and how you represent us and how you hear us.
Great. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for the great work that you do, and even partnering with URC. We did get news that Golden State Connect that the funding for broadband is zero at this point, from the 170 million. So help. Supervisor Valenzuela.
No, I would say that, first of all, Supervisor Chris is the alternate to CSAC, and that spot's going to come available here, so keep that in mind.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I think like anything, the more involved, the more you get out of it. So thank you for coming up all this way. Certainly appreciate it.
As a multi-time treasurer to our organization, and as a past president, we've spent a lot of time together ensuring that there is fiscal stability for the organization and that we're appropriately representing rural and other communities in California. So really appreciate Supervisor Valenzuela's his long-standing leadership with us as an organization. Supervisor Kopseth, to your comment relative to broadband, there are two areas that are problematic that are reduced substantially in the division. One is the loan loss reserve, and that the work of our CRC is most directly connected to that. The other portion is the bigger pool of dollars related to ensuring that there's a middle mile that is put in California, which will increase competition and is necessary in most rural areas that are not currently connected because there's no highway to then have a last mile off ramp into a community to provide that connectivity. And there are substantial slowdowns in that project based upon what is being proposed, which of course we oppose and will work dutifully as best we can using all of our leverage to try to help guide the governor and the legislature to a better place, which is to not go back on investments to broadband, which are so paramount in so many communities in California. So
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Sure, Supervisor Chris.
Sometimes we get up here, we're always respecting time, so it's moving along, but you drove a long ways up here. One source I want to bring up to you, of course, is the North Coast Resource Partnerships working on it. James Gore being on there are the cannabis cleanups, trying to obtain funding from the state. Massive illegal cannabis grows throughout the state. Long-term impacts on the environment and enforcement. We've done everything we can, but now for the cleanup, the state's been very limited on funding for properties that we can use to rehabilitate that property and reduce environmental disasters.
Thank you for raising that issue, significant one. It's on our radar, significant one all up and down the state, and surprisingly is a problem in many urban areas as well. Clearly present in a number of rural areas, particularly in the northern part of the state, where there are a lot of grows and a belief that Prop 64 made everything okay. And that actually is not what the law, how it's structured, and so ensuring that there is compliance is important, and that what is occurring in your community aligns with your community's wishes on this topic.
Thank you.
You got it. So, Paul, there you go. Okay. I sit, in addition to being the CEO of CSAC, I sit as the CEO of our California Counties Foundation. Our Chief Operating Officer is Mr. Paul Danchek. So he is running our foundation, and that includes 3 different elements. One, we are doing some direct work with the California Emerging Technology Fund around broadband, so we are working in partnership with them. Second, the grants initiative that I referenced is housed in our foundation as our 501c3. And then third, the CSAC Institute that I referenced. And that institute has been in, there have been campuses, there's currently a campus over in the Humboldt area. There have been a campus in the Shasta, Tehama area previously. One of the most important things for me when I first came to CSAC was to get a satellite campus up in the northern part of the state and to keep one here. It moves from place to place to meet county needs, but we've been able to maintain that for the past 8 years, which is terrific. And so that provides opportunity for the leadership and policy development, beginning at the supervisor level and moving all through your organization. And it really is a partnership to ensure that if you don't have the full, robust policy and leadership development within your county, that we can come and bring it to you and to assist your team in terms of their growth. And that is exactly what Supervisor Valenzuela has availed himself of doing. And that makes us better as an organization. It provides return to this board and to your community as well. And it broadens your network of influence, which is very relevant for this county and for many other smaller counties in the state. And so we would like to honor Supervisor Valenzuela for completing his CSAC Institute supervisor credential, which he has done recently. And Paul has super goodies that he can share, including the frame certificate recognizing the leadership of Supervisor Valenzuela and the benefits back to this county and to your community. So Supervisor Valenzuela, congratulations.
Thank you so much. I would like to say that Supervisor Chris has also gone through the program. I mean, something I've always encouraged. We have some staff members that have taken some CSAC classes, including So You Want to Be a CAO, if I recall. Just really grateful. I just did complete this class Friday. So the timing is really good. So it won't be forgettable. Okay, give me my thing. Let's get the photo up.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. Get over here, Grant. Thank you. So,
Awesome. And then can we get one with the rest of the board in addition?
Hey, so I would like to say something. You know, one of the things that I learned, it was a learning lesson. I was president, I think, Jose Hernandez. Grant, do you remember Jose Hernandez, the astronaut?
I do.
And so there's a learning lesson. He took 11 times to apply to become an astronaut. And one of the things they learned is that, you know, everyone meets the minimum standards. So this was my way of stepping up. I know we had some staff members that have taken some classes. So I would encourage everyone to go beyond the minimum standard to try to improve yourself. So.
Great. You guys can just sneak in. Yep.
as I like to say, act like you like each other.
Say no cooties.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
Awesome. All right,
Thank you.
congratulations.
And the
Thank you.
check's in the mail for him, is that right?
That's right.
We go way back.
Here you go.
Thanks. Appreciate
I
it.
took a bunch, so.
Awesome. Thanks.
Well, I hope we got you out of here early enough to get back timely.
Raise the voice.
Thank you guys for coming all the way up.
All right, I'm gonna switch up here a little bit. I'm gonna go to 12A, county clerk, with regard to appointment for a tenant, so community service district.
Just a sec. Spot here. Okay, this is a continued item from a couple of meetings back. It's an appointment of one member to the unscheduled vacancy on the Tenant Community Services District. This is for a short term ending December 4, 2026, and it was due to a resignation of Rick Mace. And one member is needed in order to establish a quorum for the district. That's all the board is able to appoint at this point. I did receive two different letters of interest. First was from, just a sec, Stephen Adams, and then also a gentleman, Larry Lord, who's previously been on the tenant board, and he's provided his information. I've checked; he is an active registered voter and lives within the district. And I had checked on Mr. Adams as well, who is also eligible. So it's up to the board if you want to decide on somebody today.
Also, I see some people here from Tenant. I wanted to share some good news with you. I was going to share it at the CSD meeting. I had it typed up as an email, so excuse me, I'm going to read it off here so I get the facts right. Wanted to share some good news with tenant residents. Long story short, Tenant Road will start the rebuilding process in 2025. The project will start with the survey work and redesign of the road surface. The county knows that for years you've advocated for Tenant Road to be repaired, and the county has pursued outside grant funding, which we have all these years to try to fund it. Those haven't worked out, unfortunately, but we do have Senate Bill 1 funding that we'll be using. So Tenant Road will be beginning in 2025. So I want to share that news with you guys. Usually we don't have a large crowd for tenant here. This is for tenant. This is a large crowd. So that's some good news for the tenant folks up there. I was going to send an email out. I had to read off it so I got the exact facts and figures right. For appointment, I'll nominate a gentleman named Larry Lewis.
Second.
Alrighty, I do have Mr. Lewis' letter here if anybody wants to see copies, but I believe I had forwarded it to the board as well.
Yeah.
Okay, Supervisor Valenzuela.
Yep.
Supervisor Chris.
Aye.
Supervisor Okren.
Aye.
And Supervisor Thompson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to item 7B, community development. Good morning, Mr. Dean. Tee this up so that we can be expedient in where you want to go with it.
Copy that.
You don't want a rabbit trail.
Rick Dean, Community Development Director. In the format of expediency, community development was approached by supervisors to take a look at opportunities potentially for small-scale campgrounds, essentially for recreational purposes for our county, and also the Western TOT perhaps. So
That said, staff looked into that. It's going to come to the board and basically present some options. Some problematic issues we had are with temporary structures. Right? So typically camping is a temporary structure that you're in. With that in the building code, at the end of 6 months, it has to come down, basically, so it's no longer there. It becomes a permanent structure. All that to say, with our endeavor, staff realized that there's a Senate Bill 620 that is before California. It's currently involved right now. Moving forward seems to be, and addresses that very thing. So, as you know, we have campgrounds specific to highway commercial zoning allowable here, and that's all regulated by HCP, Housing and Community Development. With the small scale camping that's being proposed, it allows for what they term 9 sleeping accommodations, temporary sleeping accommodations, but it puts it in the hands of the local to regulate on the county and takes it out of the HCP. So essentially, you vision small campgrounds. So I guess at this point in time, direction from the board, we can wait to see if this legislation actually passes through California, which it becomes state law. We have to embrace it, or we can get ahead of the curve, so to speak, and develop our own ordinance with that. Anything I have, if I can be so bold, because there's a lot of things as far as what type of zoning you should go into, whether or not it should be occupied in a single family dwelling, etc. So I have a little bit of homework. I'll just pass out.
Okay, that would be good. So bottom line here is, I guess I'll let you get back to the podium. Do you have availability to kind of be ahead of the curve on this, potentially, if we decide to give you that direction before it passes or not?
Yeah, absolutely. As you know, we're working on a general plan. Staff has got a lot going on.
Okay.
But
this wouldn't be a huge dump on you to say, oh, well, gosh, we don't have time.
Yeah, no, we would plug it in with our workflow. And as a land use ordinance, we have to go before the planning commission.
Right. And if this should pass, can we, I'll call it, customize it to our needs specifically versus just embracing the whole program? Is it have that flexibility?
Yes, there's some built-in flexibility there, specifically on sewage disposal, water supply, that type of thing.
Okay.
Tailored to local ordinances.
Okay.
And just generally speaking, whenever legislation comes through, the local, we can make it more restrictive.
Okay.
Just not less restrictive.
And what you need from us today is basically just direction with regard to, in preparation of this potentially passing, starting to work on a draft ordinance that would come before us, where we would work out those details. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Questions from the board?
Yeah, my question was just along the lines of staff time to move it to this semester. You've answered.
Okay. Supervisor Ogre?
Are there any restrictions that you can think of about location throughout the county?
Yes, and within legislation is designed to be outside of urban areas, which is, state of California, right? So it would be something in our review. We can design basically that. So I think the most problematic zoning that we have is rural residential, right? Ranges from 2.5 acres up to 160 acres, essentially. And what would the board be comfortable with as far as an acreage minimum to put in this house? 10 acres, 20 acres, 40 acres. And that's their homework assignment there, if I may. Just to give us an idea of what the board's comfortable with. So what you have is a draft copy of the actual legislation, and the comments in there, basically some areas to address and think about.
Supervisor Valenzuela?
Nothing at this time.
So I'm okay with you going ahead if you have that time. If that's available to you, fine. If it doesn't pass or if it looks like it's gonna fail, then obviously, I guess you dropped it. But I still think we have some issues that we have to work out anyway with regard to some of that this brings up. So I guess you could still be working on that potentially with regard to what this addresses as well, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can basically use this as a template
Okay.
essentially.
Okay.
I don't want to stress out of an opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think we've got 4 nodding heads. Go ahead. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, it just won't be expedient or movable in the queue.
Okay. Yep. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Item. Yeah. Item 7. I want to check. We're not ready for.
A couple more minutes.
Okay. Let's go to item 7F, County Council.
So this item is an application for permission to present a late claim filed by Northland Insurance on behalf of its insured Shad Trucking. When a person misses the claims filing deadline, the statutory 6-month deadline, the government code provides that a request to the board may be made for permission to file a late claim. This particular claim arises from an auto collision that happened July 12th, 2023, and the claim that was submitted was rejected as untimely. There's attached correspondence in which Northland Insurance confirmed with our third-party claims administrator, George Hills, that the downtime claim that they filed late was not covered by Northland, nor was it being pursued by Northland, and Shad Trucking did not file its own claim within the 6-month statutory period. George Hills, our third-party claims administrator, recommends denial of the application. The proposed claim has not been attached to the application notably, and the application does not expressly identify one of the reasons for filing a late claim under Government Code Section 946.6. So the board has the option to either deny the application to present the late claim, approve the application for presenting the late claim, and then it will be processed by George Hills, or take no action and your failure to act will result in denial of the application by operation of law.
Okay. Any questions? If not, looking for action.
Well, I think for me, it's just, I don't want to open a door to, every one of these is probably different, but if you open the door to allow claims passed, then you set yourself up for the future, so I can't support it at this time.
Okay. So, at this point, there may be no action which gets to the same place, is that correct?
Yes, if the board takes no action, then after 45 days by operation of law, it will be considered denied.
Okay. And if we deny the application, does that expedite that?
Then it would be considered denied today, and our third-party claims administrator would send out notice.
Okay.
What's the preferred route?
I think
just to not do any action.
It's at your discretion.
I'm leaning towards just denying it right out and get it over with.
Yeah.
That's, so I would make that motion.
I'll second it.
Supervisor Valenzuela.
Yep.
Supervisor Chris.
Aye.
Supervisor Okring. And Supervisor Powell.
Aye. 7G, County Council.
This item is continued from the last board meeting. Again, this is an application to file a late claim presented by a law firm on behalf of Valerie Manners. The underlying claim arises from an auto accident that occurred on September 19th, 2023 in or about Yuba City, California. Previously, we had continued this matter with the understanding that law enforcement would be able to alter a traffic collision report that identified Siskiyou County as the leased owner of the vehicle that was involved in the auto accident. I understand from staff that law enforcement will not be able to make that alteration. The underlying reason for the lateness of the claim is the late issuance of the traffic collision report in April. The most often used statutory basis for granting an application to file a late claim is that it was not timely filed due to mistake, inadvertent surprise, or excusable neglect. In this case, after consulting with our third-party claims administrator, the recommendation would be to accept the claim, as it's likely that the late issuance of the report would be excusable neglect. That does not mean that you are approving or denying the underlying claim. Would just mean that you are finding excusable neglect for the lateness of the application.
And that's what George Hills is indicating, is that correct?
Yes.
Question.
Go ahead, Supervisor Chris.
You probably have on the agenda worksheet. It said he said denial.
Yes. So in
That was the previous
our
one.
first discussion on this, that was the recommendation. Since we have been unable to alter the traffic report, the recommendation was changed. You can still deny it. If you do deny it, then the law firm would have the opportunity to petition the Superior Court to establish that there was excusable neglect. We would get outside counsel to defend, and then the court would make the decision.
Not just rectifying that for the record. But if that's his recommendation.
Yeah, I have a motion.
What was that again, to deny?
No, to accept.
To accept. The late,
Good thing if I add that stuff to this.
yeah, to accept the late claim application.
Yes.
Thank you. And do we have a second?
So, and just, the main holdup on this was the traffic report.
Correct.
Okay.
Our third-party claims administrator is still working with Yuba County, who it appears actually was in possession of the vehicle, and it was their staff that was involved in the accident. So we will be working on ironing that out.
Ready for the vote?
Mhm.
Okay, Supervisor Valenzuela,
Sure.
Supervisor Chris,
Aye.
Supervisor Ogren, and Supervisor Thompson.
Aye. 7H, County Council.
7H is another application that is associated with the same auto collision and was filed late on the same basis as 7G. And the recommendation revised would be the same, to accept the late claim based on excusable neglect.
So move to accept.
Thank you.
Second.
All right. Supervisor Valenzuela.
Okay.
Supervisor Chris.
Aye.
Supervisor Ogren. And Supervisor Thompson.
So we're gonna get ready to go into, I think, 6, D and E. We're gonna take a quick break here in a minute, but I wanted, for clarification, does any of, what?
7D.
I'm sorry,
That's okay.
yes, 7 D and E. But what I wanna clarify is, are we gonna be opening the water conservation district simultaneously for any of this, or is that in 8, in that, is that gonna be separate from 7?
Separate.
Separate, okay, that's what I need to know. We're gonna take a 5-minute break. go to public hearings, item 14. I think, Mr. Dean, I think you had told me that item A will be continued. Did we go wipe that one out? Is that
Well,
correct?
the request is, I believe, to open and continue, otherwise we have to republish to a new date.
Okay, so.
So I'm just gonna step out for the.
All right, Supervisor Chris will recuse himself on this one.
So this is 14A.
14A, and I will open the hearing this is a public hearing to consider two resolutions, one approving amendment for 4 existing ag preserves and one approving rescission re-entry of Wisconsin Act application APA 2305. Okay?
Okay, Rick Dean, Community Development Director. Supervisor, I'd like to continue that to date and time of June 4th.
June 4th, okay.
They say here 18.
18?
On the worksheet.
I stand corrected.
All right.
Okay,
June
so
18th.
16.
Okay, we'll do that. Okay, so we'll continue the hearing to June 18th.
Sounds good.
Okay, council, we're all right with that? And then on item 14B, let's proceed on that one. We'll open the hearing, this public hearing for first reading of an ordinance reclassifying land in the unincorporated community of Grenada, Town Center CC Light Industrial MM on APN 038-448-021. Who is that?
Hold on just a second.
Thank you, Rachel Jarrett, Senior
Good morning.
Planner. This project is located within the unincorporated community of Grenada at the site of the Grenada Gardens Senior Living Facility. This project is a zone change of 2.68 acres from town center commercial to light industrial. And this project is proposed in order to facilitate the potential use of a portion of the property for a mini storage facility. The existing zoning of town center commercial is not proposed to change for the portion of the parcel that already is developed with the Grenada Gardens Senior Living Facility. This project was considered by the Planning Commission during their April meeting and also included a tentative parcel map to split the parcel in two. And it's the southern parcel that is proposed for this zone change. That meeting resulted in a recommendation of board approval. Staff is recommending that the project be found consistent with the general plan and zoning for its area. Because there is no substantial evidence that the proposed zone change and tentative parcel map may have a significant effect on the environment, staff is also recommending that this project be found exempt from CEQA pursuant to the common sense exemption and the existing facilities exemption, as the project site is already developed. No public comments have been received by planning staff regarding this project, and there is a recommended motion in the packet for this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any presentation of correspondence?
Just double checking, but I do not believe the clerks have received any either.
Okay, presentation of reports, arguments, or evidence by staff of other county departments or public agencies. Anyone in-house? Seeing none. Anyone online?
Showing none online.
Thank you. Proponents, arguments, and or evidence. Anyone in-house?
Through the chair, we do have the project applicant and staff if you have any questions for them.
Okay, thank you. Anyone online?
Showing none online.
Opponents, arguments, and or evidence. Anyone in-house? Seeing none. Anyone online?
Showing none online.
None online. Public comment. Anyone in-house? Seeing none. Anyone online?
Showing none online.
None online. Well, there's no rebuttal by proponents or opponents. And are we closing this or continuing it? Okay, continue, right? So we're bringing it back to the board, correct? For action.
And June 4th would be available for this, the second reading of this
Okay.
ordinance. I do know we have our appeal hearing also on June 4th.
Right. But these are scheduled any time, right? There's no
Correct.
time limit. So, okay. And so I would make the recommended motion.
And we want to move that to 6-4 for the second reading, June 4th.
Yes, sorry.
All right, Supervisor Valenzuela.
Sure.
Supervisor Chris.
Aye.
Supervisor Ogren. And Supervisor Cubs.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's go back now to item 7D.
Board, Ricky, Community Development Director. This is a presentation by Dr. Fulvia regarding our welcome and school status, focus on youth valley. We have a presentation.
Good morning.
Good morning, thank you. Okay, you can have anything else? Okay, probably, you remember probably from when we discussed last time and we agreed on coming up with a tool using the information that we are developing for a different water sustainability plan, for a tool that can help GSA, but also the environmental health department to make decisions.
I'm sorry, but did you say your name?
Sorry.
Yes.
Laura Fredda, Larry Walker Associates.
Thank you.
Sorry. And to provide a tool that can help applicants when they want to drill a new well or deepen an existing well or just repair a well. So what we did is, as a starting point, we started with an example from Butte Valley. It's really, the approach is really to comply with the executive order. And what we did is we look at all the wells that we know of in Butte Valley right now. And we look at the depth and the capacity of the wells that are currently in use in Butte Valley. And then we decided to run model scenarios that are looking at hypothetical new wells and the impact that these hypothetical new wells would have to the neighbors. Then we still have to decide what is an acceptable impact. That's something that probably when there would be all the numbers we will have to discuss all together. But the idea is really just to provide a tool that can speed up the process without having every single applicant going for a hydrogeological report or a specific study. So I will show you how the tools look like and what the tools does right now, and then the idea is that this approach is now for Butte Valley. We didn't touch Scott and Shasta yet because of public trust. So Scott and Shasta, they need kind of a different approach on top of this one. I think the two will need to go together. But I will give you an idea of how it can be used. Next. So we look at the well completion report that we got from Department of Water Resources, and we don't have all the information that we would like to have for the wells. So we have some pump tests from driller. We have some ideas of the depth of the wells, but the information, just to be very honest, are very sparse. We get one thing for one well, one thing for another well, so we have to use some kind of assumptions. Our goal is that one of the components of the implementation grant that we have through Department of Water Resources is really to look into what we call a well inventory. So we are already working on preparing better maps of what's the status of the different wells in the three valleys. But I will give you an idea of how things look like. In this study, we decided to consider only wells since 1989. We really didn't go much back, much further back than that. And but it gives us an idea of what is out there. Next. So the average depth of the wells that are out there in Butte Valley right now, it's about 448 feet, just to give you an idea. So the wells in Butte Valley are pretty deep because the agricultural wells are the ones that are really kind of screened and they use the deepest aquifer. and half of the problem is that half of the wells are still much shallower, and with the water levels going down in Butte Valley, that's what we need to take into account. Next. And only for 37 out of the 43 non-exempt wells that we had from 1989 to 2024, and again, this is just what we have. It's not all the wells that are out there. So I want to make it very clear. The average yield is 1355 gallons per minute. Just this also gives you an idea. This is kind of the capacity of the biggest wells that we have right now, and these are mostly agricultural wells. Next. So what we did is we created in Butte Valley 138 hypothetical wells. These wells were a combination of different construction and different capacity. So we look at shallow wells like 200, 400, 600, and then we went to the deep well, 800, 1200 feet. And then we look at the range of capacity between 600 gallons per minute to 3,000 gallons per minute. The idea is really to cover all what can be asked for. So any applicants that come in with asking for drilling a new well. So the predictions were made by placing these hypothetical wells within the Butte Valley Basin in different locations, and then we were looking at the drawdown as predicted by the model. Again, the model is not perfect, but also the data that we have are not perfect, so we have to kind of come up with just assumptions. Next. So we highlighted this is the Butte Valley groundwater basin in green, but the model and the water use actually expand beyond just the groundwater basin. And the executive order is not just for the Sigma Basin, it's for the entire county. So we looked at, for now we looked at new hypothetical wells in the 6 circles that you see there, just as a starting point. And we were placing the wells in different locations within those 6 highlighted circles. Why did we pick those? Because those are the areas where eventually there probably might be the need or the ask for a new well, based on what we are finding out working on Butte Valley. And next. So then the model is I don't want to go into the details, but you will see this also later when we talk about Butte Valley. The model is not perfect, but it's really now providing results that are reasonable enough to justify why we can use the model for these well approach study. Still, we will be keeping working on the models. The model will get better and better, but I believe that for the pyramid analysis, this is really already something that we can use. Next. So to give you an idea, I just highlighted a couple of the results that we got. This is a well which is up there. So the big blue line is the entire watershed in Butte Valley, and the red line is the groundwater basin. We picked a well which is up north, not very far from city of Doris, and this is again just to give you an example. And then we imagine that this well all of a sudden starts pumping and starts pumping with different capacities. Next. So what we did is, and we look at the results. Imagine that this well starts pumping in April because it's an irrigation well, and we look at what happens in terms of drawdown in August. So again, all hypothetical. We look at a different combination of depth and pumping rate. For example, a 600 feet and 600 gallons per minute, up to 800 feet and 3,000 gallons per minute. And then the shade that you see around the well with a kind of weird shape, because it really depends on the geology and many different things. That's the drawdown that would be caused by having that extra well in the Butte Valley. So, for example, in the water which is only 600 feet and 600 gallons per minute, we see the drawdown at the location of the well is about 22 feet, and then but it really declines very rapidly to 2 feet because it's not a well that pumps that much. When we go to a much larger well, we see a drawdown which is 120 feet or something like that. But again, the radius for this specific well is not very big, and it declines a lot very quickly. So just because of the location of the well. So we did this basically. Here is 3 example, but we did it for I think it's 42 combination of pumping and depth. So basically, you get a full package of options. Next. And then if we take a well that is actually central in the Butte Basin, I can show you next. The results are very different. It looks like a well located in the middle of the basin seems to have potentially a much larger area of influence, even if it's maybe it's, I think the biggest area is just 0.2 feet, so it's not that much. But there will be the need to decide really what is not too much, what is the drawdown that can be accepted. So basically, in this specific example, you see that the well that is pumping only 600 GPM, it has a drawdown at the cell of 24 feet, but basically it doesn't move out. It just stays there and goes away. So what to do with these is next. So what we are now compiling is a table like the one that I had there. It's gonna be a website, a web interface, much nicer than this. But I want to give you an idea of where we are going. So the scenarios are all finalized right now. What the questions now are: what is the accepted drawdown, and we still need to answer the question of are there wells nearby that can be impacted, and what is an acceptable impact in terms of these existing wells. So imagine that the 6 circles in color, they will be zone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We will have a table, let's say, for example, in zone 1, if there is a request for a new well at about 800 feet with a 3000 GPM, and the model is going to give us expected drawdown, expected radius of influence, then we will need to answer the question, are there other wells nearby that can be impacted? And based on that, then the key question is going to be, can it be permitted or needs more analysis? Our hope is that for a good number of these all these requirements, we will be able to say yes, the well can be permitted or no, and maybe reduce the number of other analysis. That's kind of the idea. But the table basically will give a tool to the county to decide, at least screen off all the wells that are not a problem. And I think I'm done.
Questions? One. Doesn't look like it.
I feel like I'm in a high level college class. And so when I want to say, take me out there and show me in reality what it looks like. But it's interesting to say this.
Yeah, in reality, it's really like, the only way, because we don't have exact information, is to assume, let's say what happens if we drill a new well. And because we don't have pump tests, we don't have much existing concrete data to use. So using the model is kind of a way to start understanding if there is a big drawdown or not.
I think where I'm going with this is that, it's so important to the whole process here. The expense of a well. I mean, wouldn't you want to know the data to make a decision based on that? So, and to see where this is ultimately heading. critical action to where we are.
Yeah, ideally, I hope it's gonna be also a good information for well applicants, so when they start designing the wells, they can see what's possible, what's not possible, and what's really the most reasonable approach.
And then, one of the things that talked about the limitations, that slide, this says the model that you have so far does not bias significantly over and under, so it's.
Which is good, actually.
That's very good, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good thing, so, you know, there will be errors, but they are kind of contained.
One thing I think that too is the different levels of aquifer.
Mm-hmm.
You may have, what happened was in 1950, someone drilled a well, they paid where they hit water, and then they stopped, because they were going to do money for more. So you have shallow wells, and you have deeper wells that drill over time. How does this take into relation the different levels of aquifer? If someone is going to go, say, 300 feet, 200 feet, or someone's going to go 1,200 feet, how does that take that into play?
We use the range between 200 and 1,200 feet, and we all our hypothetical wells they change depth, and then we can compare depending on the depth. Right. So I think probably and to really understanding which layer they are, we included everything into the geological model that we have. So ideally, the well depth correspond to a certain geological layer. So it should correspond to all the it's just the best information that we have. But you know, when they did, we put together the geological information from the past with when they ran when DWR paid for the helicopter that ran over. Yes, that's all included. So all the geology that we know of is included in the model, so it's taken into account for this analysis.
So you can very well have a deeper one that won't impact a more shallow.
That can be, but you know, in Butte Valley, you saw the two examples that I have there. They're so different, just because the geology is very different. So the reason why I picked those two examples is just because they are complete. Even if it's not that you need to understand exactly what it means, but just visually, it gives you an idea of how the geology, the location can play a role.
And I like that the model's not biased. I mean, that's
sometimes
just good assurances.
Hopefully.
The question I had too in regards to for the Two Lake Basin, everyone wants to step up on that. Of course, that's not this same model can be used for that, for the Siskiyou portion of where we need to issue or not issue permits for Two Lake Basin.
In theory, it can be the same exact approach using the model that they have. So just using we created this program that is really creating these hypothetical wells, and it will be used in the same way Scott and Shasta can be used in Two Lake. We just started from Butte Valley because you know we are working so much on Butte Valley right now. and so we started with the Butte Valley model, but the approach, the theory behind can be used in the same way.
And one thing, of course, all the basins deal with is the high cost of electricity, which has always been which propels a great deal of efficiency.
Yeah.
I'll stop there with my question.
Supervisor Ober, anything?
I just am excited to see real raw data, because that's what's really going to make this much more efficient and palatable moving forward, is to be able to plug real data into it.
You mean real wells? Yeah.
That's what's going to make it more valid.
Because it's just that we see also when we get collecting all the information that are there already, it looks like it's a challenge.
Yes.
Okay, I think we have some online. Is there anyone in-house before we go to online? Public comment? Okay, let's go online. And this is not an action item.
ELF admin, it's your turn to speak.
Hi, good morning. My name is Nathaniel Kane. I'm the Executive Director of the Environmental Law Foundation. I just want to say thank you for the presentation. It was really informative. And I just wanted to ask a question of Dr. Foglia, which is the model tool you're using now currently capable of analyzing impacts to surface waters, to stream flows as a result? Yes. Thank you.
Yes, so in principle it is. In Butte Valley, we don't have any surface water bodies. That it's we only have the managed wetland at Miss Lake. So that's also the reason why we started with Butte Valley as an example, because it's a little bit easier to just disconnect, let's say, the impact to neighbors well, so which is really what it's in the executive order, and then the impact to surface water. For what we will be doing for Scott and Shasta, obviously we will take what I presented today and take it to the next level, because there will be all the assessment of impact to surface waters.
Okay, we have another one online.
Nick Jocelyn, it's your turn to speak.
Good morning.
Nick Joslin, Mount Shasta, California. I was just curious, I haven't been attending the Butte Sigma meetings, but was there a time when you shared the geology info that went through this model?
Yes, we did it. I'm pretty sure we did it in the fall last year. So the slides are all available. They are available right now. They are available on the Butte Valley website. I can also share them again as needed. It was, I'm pretty sure it was October 2023 that meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. No one else online?
Showing no others on there.
All right, so let's move on to item.
Yeah, just make a
Oh, wait,
comment
I'm
real
sorry.
quick. The two gentlemen that just spoke, there was an email, I believe, with the board and community development were copied on this letter from the Environmental Law Foundation. It includes 7D as well as 7E.
Okay.
I've got copies here if anybody wants them, or I can give them out for the public. They can see them as well. That's for both. It'll be for the next item as well.
Okay. So we are going to move on to item 7E, community development.
Morning. Again, good morning. Routine Community Development Director. Thank you, Dr. Foglia, for the presentation. It's an important idea where we are with the development of the well permitting tool. At this point, it's pretty fearful for Butte Valley. Needs to be developed and pushed over into Scott and Shasta as well in the future. The item at hand right now was going back to our informational groundwater permitting process guidelines. Bringing this back from November last year, where we had direction from the board to remove the indemnification piece of it, which has been done. And the only other change was on page 3. Essentially added in the curtailment orders that the state looking to have this approved, so we can have these guidelines in place.
Okay. I have a couple of public comments. We have one that we've entered the record that you just provided. Ms. Wendy, correct? The
Yes.
written one? Yes.
The written one, yes, it'll be in both of them.
And do you have a copy of that yet, Mr. Dean?
Yes.
It's
Okay.
the email.
All right.
You're on the emails. There.
Tim Nielsen. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Tim Nielsen, and I'm once again here to urge the supervisors to direct the proper county departments to create necessary framework to allow the issuance of well permits throughout the county. I attended the Siskiyou Board of Supervisors meeting last fall on the new state regulations for well permitting, and the main discussion at that meeting was a new requirement for a well permitting application to hydrogeologist report showing a proposed well won't impact neighboring wells before permit could be issued. I left that board meeting with the belief that the new well permit requirements would be satisfied if I obtained a hydrogeologist report. So I obtained and submitted that report only to learn that there are additional requirements that need to be met before my well permit can be issued. I fully don't understand why these additional requirements weren't brought up in that meeting. I'm also going to say this till I'm blue in the face, and you probably all heard it from me before, but I believe there's a flaw with the new state requirements for issuing well permits. What I believe the purpose behind these new requirements is to reduce additional groundwater extraction and limit creating new irrigated land in an area that is being overdrafted. I think everyone here can agree that makes sense. What doesn't make sense is to hold these requirements to an individual that is applying for a well permit to deepen existing wells on their property to extract the same volume of water and irrigate the same amount of acreage. The new well regulations are allowing much newer wells around me to irrigate ground that was dry land 20 years ago, while I'm forced to fallow some of the oldest land in Gazelle that's been irrigated with groundwater. Again, please push the necessary departments to develop the procedures to comply with the new state regulations as soon as possible. The state issued these new well permitting requirements on the county quite a while ago, and more than sufficient time has passed for the county to develop the process to fulfill them. I'm going on my second season of fallowing productive farm ground due to the inability of the county to comply with these regulations, all while watching neighbors with their new wells irrigating ground that was dry land not that long ago. Again, thank you for letting me speak today, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else in house? And then we have 2 online.
ELF admin is return to speak.
Good morning, supervisors. My name is Nathaniel Kane, again, with the Environmental Law Foundation. As you're aware, and I appreciate the mention of our letter that was entered into the record, we have been working on stream flows in the Scott and also the Shasta for quite a while. And we have significant concerns about the well guidelines that are up for discussion today. We have sent numerous letters, and we're worried that the concerns in those letters over the last year or more have not been addressed. First, there is insufficient public trust review to satisfy the county's obligations under the law. The guidelines simply do not say how the county will consider the public trust impacts of new wells and how it will mitigate those impacts to the extent feasible as required by law. We know that groundwater extraction has a direct impact on stream flows in certain parts of the county, as the GSP that this board adopted acknowledges, but there are no intelligible standards in the guidelines that inform the public about how the county is going to discharge those public trust duties to evaluate the impacts and mitigate them so far as feasible. The modeling approach discussed by Dr. Cogley a few minutes ago, it has potential, but it's up to the county to make the actual decision about how much stream flow impact is acceptable and how to mitigate that impact to the extent feasible. And I have concerns that the modeling approach that was discussed is not yet ready to analyze impacts on stream flows, especially in the Scott and Shasta valleys where the hydrology and geology are quite different than Butte. There's also a sequel problem with this, with these guidelines. The resolution states that they're exempt under sections 15307 and 15061. These exceptions, which are narrowly construed, do not apply here. The cases are clear that when there's a regulatory change that could allow increased impacts on the environment, and these guidelines will allow drilling that could have those impacts, then the project is not categorically exempt. There's also an exception to the exemption when there are cumulative effects, and I think that the record is very clear that there's potential for cumulative effects on stream flows. The county has to take the next step and look at the impacts of these guidelines on well drilling and the environmental effects of that drilling. To sum up, the courts and the law have put a clear obligation on the county to take a hard, holistic, data-driven look at the impacts of well drilling on the environment and to mitigate those impacts, the impacts to stream flows, to listed species, to commercial and recreational fisheries, to tribes. And it has to do that before permitting new wells. And these guidelines do not fulfill that obligation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Another public comment, Nick Jocelyn.
Nick Jocelyn, it's your turn to speak.
Hello, Nick Joslin, Mount Shasta, California. I have been attending the Shasta Sigma meetings, and I hadn't seen the guidance come before the GSA there, and I could be wrong, but it seems like if the GSA was going to be the decision-making body on new wells, somehow that this process should be running through them as well. And then I also wanted to echo the fact that that butte model, while it does appear to be working okay for the Butte Valley, Scott and Shasta are very different basins. And while there are models being developed in both of those basins, neither of those models seem ready to be used for decision making. So I think it would be premature for the county to approve this guidance. Thank you.
Any other public comment online?
Showing no others online.
Any public comment in-house? And then I don't know who I'm going to call on to address some of what's been questioned. But one of the things that I want to make clear, I guess, is the advisory committees are just that. They're recommendation bodies only. They're not decision-making bodies. Is that correct? Okay, I just want to make that clear. Okay. So who wants to take, let's start with public comment from Mr. Nielsen with regard to what he brought forward.
All what he says, Hurricane Community Development Director, is per, right? Within these guidelines, they're informational to move forward with executive order primarily. And within them, we identified that production wells will have to go potentially through a safety process to deal with. It's not clearly identified how that's going to happen. That's all basically dynamic at this point in building the model so that we can actually do detailed evaluation on public trust doctrine. This primarily deals with the governor's order, adjacent wells, and within it, it does state that production wells will be able through the secret process. It's general, it's wide, but it is included. Also, Mr. Johnson's concerned about the GSA review. This is built into the guidelines also. Any production well goes through the GSA for approval and require a signature document, basically saying whether it's compatible with the GSP, the basin within which the well is proposed.
So with regard to the hydrology report that Mr. Nielsen brought forward, with regard to that, what's, I guess I'll say, the further hang up in going forward?
At this point, we've received his report, evaluated, and it's satisfactory as far as impacts to adjacent wells. So now it's in the GSA's realm to approve and confirm that it's compatible with the GSP.
So what's rolling around in the back of my head with the curtailments that have happened and the drought that's happened in the past, and essentially, I even looked up at the project where dewatering has essentially taken effect and groundwater recharge has not been available. How does that affect what normally would be groundwater recharge in some of these areas, and that wells would be fine, but because of regulation and land or water was taken off the land and groundwater recharge was not allowed to reoccur? How does that factor into what we're dealing with regard to whether it's keeping a well or a new well? Sorry. I'm putting you on the spot, I apologize, but that's a factor, is it not?
Yeah, obviously it affects the aquifer, the quantity of waters, right? And that all has to be taken into account with the GSP plan. you can affect the decisions made there as far as the sustainability involved. Very general conversation. Essentially, understood.
But for me, that's gonna be a factor, because if regulations have dewatered a system that affects wells that are currently in use, I don't know how, I mean, basically, we cut the legs out from under whoever was using those wells. And we somehow have to address that. And I know that state regulation is kind of not going there. They seem to, have more of a emphasis on putting water in stream versus what normally should be. These systems have been groundwater recharge traditionally. And now we're coming up against a new factor. I'll leave it at that while you contemplate that. I'll bring it back to the board. Questions?
So I just
Supervisor
wanted,
Valenzuela.
Mr. Nielsen references other wells that were put into production. Are they the same wells? Are they, what kind of wells are you putting in?
I'm not familiar with any new wells drilled out there.
And I was, why did those get in? He's still struggling to
Yes,
get in.
before the
These are wells that were fishing up.
as he mentioned, these are wells that came in, were permitted prior to government order.
Okay, so they were ahead of the curve.
But their actions have affected as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone else? Supervisor Chris?
Yeah, to support with something Supervisor Cox has said, of course, this doesn't touch that subject, it's more general. But there is an irony when the state says we don't want you to flood irrigate because it might impact your neighbor's domestic well. Well, that's just recharging the domestic well all those years. But of course, that's, so yeah, the flood irrigation had its role and beneficial and all those sorts of things. I think that for producers, for the public, for the interest groups, we need to set these guidelines in place so people have a target to what they need to move forward and what they need to accomplish. Your general questions for Mr. Dean, the purpose of this is to meet the executive orders in 20-something, that resolution again, but these are intended to meet the governor's executive orders in 722 and in 23. And these meet, the governor's orders as well as the appellate court case from August 29th. So these are intended to meet those requirements, set a mark for county process so people know what they're actually doing operate in.
Correct, that's the primary purpose, right? Yeah. The public trust doctrine is discussed within the guidelines. Yes, certainly an issue of development. Home methodology to properly evaluate, which would be coming on an ordinance.
So yeah, I'm comfortable because it meets what we need to meet and we have to do.
Supervisor Ogren, anything? You want to wait for council to?
No, wait.
Okay. Natalie?
Yeah, County Council Natalie Reed. I just want to clarify that these guidelines explain a process that applications go through, but they don't approve any well application. They don't make any well permitting decisions. It's just outlining the process and providing the public with information about the various web of authorities that impact well permits. So also one amendment that needs to be made to the guidelines is on page 4, where it says applications for exempt domestic and public wells. There are 2 words, declaration required, that should be
Do you have this
I
right?
don't. Which paragraph are you talking about?
So it's by the red
Oh, my
writing that says applications for
God. I don't
exempt.
show up red.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So Roman numeral 4
Okay,
under implementation of executive order, there's writing that says applications for exempt domestic and
Yeah.
public wells, and there's 2 words, declaration required. That was from a previous draft.
oh, okay, perfect. Yes, I made that.
Got it now? Okay. Anything further from anyone?
It sounds like what county council just explained.
Yes, yes.
You know, I think one of the things I struggle with all the time up here is just trying to stay current with everything, what the state's dictating to us. I feel like we're stuck in the middle where we get sued all the time, we get scrutinized from people that don't live in the area. I mean, it's just mind-boggling. The county hasn't grown. It's not like like our world has changed all that dramatically. You know, Mother Nature is the biggest factor here that we have no control over. Yet we're being finger pointed or whatever. So thank you, Ms. Reed, for clarifying that we're farther along than we've ever been. Quite honestly.
Yeah.
Yes, we're trying to get there recently.
Yeah.
Well, and it's a moving target, and we will adjust as new rules and things happen. I mean, this is not a static end. You know, it's a fluid operation that we're dealing with.
Okay. So with that, I'm looking for some action by the board.
I'll do the recommended motion along with county council's edits, revisions that you all
Okay.
noted. I'll go ahead and do both. Yeah, there's 2 different things I'll do. Both of them. Recommend.
You're doing the recommended motion with the amendment.
Whether you can-
Okay. All right. I'll
That
second it.
includes directing staff to come back with the ordinance later.
Correct. This one,
Okay, thank you.
we have both 1 and 2.
Okay. And I second it.
Oh, okay, thank you. Alrighty, Supervisor Valenzuela,
Okay.
Supervisor Chris,
Aye.
Supervisor Okren, aye, and Supervisor Copson.
Aye. All right.
Rick, I've got the resolution that can be signed, but if you'll email me the corrected guidelines, I'll attach it.
All right. I'm going to go to 7I, County Administration. Good morning. Yeah.
Almost. Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board, Angela Davis, County Administrator. Before you today are 2 resolutions pertaining to a ballot measure to include language to establish a board-appointed County of Siskiyou Auditor Controller. And so the resolutions will include the language that will be on the ballot, as well as the request to be consolidated with the statewide election to be held on November 5, 2024. So I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions from the board? If not, looking for action.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
And that's to adopt both of the resolutions, correct?
Sure.
Correct.
Thank you. Alrighty, Supervisor Valenzuela,
Okay.
Supervisor Chris,
Aye.
Supervisor Okren, aye, and Supervisor Copson.
Aye. So, where's Matt? Dr. Harder is available currently, is that correct?
Possibly in 10, 15 minutes.
CSA 4.
Yeah, I know, I was gonna go CSA 4 to get our chief out of here so he doesn't have to hang out. So let's do that, let's see where we're at after that. Let's move to item 10, we'll recess as the Board of Supervisors and convene as County Service Area 4. 10A is public comment. Anyone in-house? Seeing none, anyone online?
Showing none online.
All right, 10B. County, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. So these are all marked consent, and unfortunately I didn't finish the agenda. I was out sick last week. So they're all basically the same issue, just
Right.
with different zones or zips.
Okay.
And they technically were consent, so I mentioned you could take them all one motion if you'd like.
One motion, okay.
Yes.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
On all?
Yes.
10B, 10C, D, and E, correct?
Okay, so all the agreements.
I'll second.
All right. Director Valenzuela.
Sure.
Director Chris.
Aye.
Director Ogren. And Director Kopsteff.
Aye. We'll adjourn as County Service Area 4. I'm trying to, go ahead. Ms. Davis.
Angela Davis, County Administrator. Item 8D, we do have police engineering representative here.
They are here.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm trying to think, what do we have in, so we can hold B on that one, correct? For
Correct.
Mr. Harder. Yeah, so let's do that. I adjourned, is that, so we'll convene as the Siskiyou County Water Conservation District, Flood Control and Water Conservation District. We're at item 8A, public comment. Any public comment? Anyone in-house? Seeing none, anyone online?
Showing none online.
Seeing none. Let's go to item, well, no, one I can't. Let's see, yeah, let's go with D first, because we have somebody here from base. Good morning, or good afternoon now. I
Yeah,
guess.
afternoon, we can do afternoon now. Amanda Kimball, Deputy Director of General Services. Today we are here to bring an item to discussion and your direction for a project that's been going on in our department for a couple of years now. We have gone out for RFP for this project twice. In the process of going out for RFP, county highly strongly recommended that I go out for another RFP for an engineer that I can have in my back pocket for all of my projects. So I did that, and after moving forward, I had Pace Engineering, who was awarded the bid, come up to walk the project through the bridge to connect both North Shore and the other side of Lake Siskiyou to essentially do the trail completely around the lake. It kind of got put on hold. Pace came in and they evaluated. They did a memorandum that is attached for your reference. In the process of having them come and look, and then also having to essentially build RFPs, we also got our funding for the project reallocated. So I have asked Sean from Pace to be here to answer any additional questions you have, but we are mostly seeking guidance and what you guys really want for the future of this project. Do we need to move forward with it, and how you guys want us to move forward with it?
So I think let's hear from Pace.
Well, if I could just tee that a little bit. Sure, Ms. Kopsteff. As you well know, there's I call it an incomplete project. Supervisor Kopsteff, you were here, I hope, when the discussion was when they put the first bridge permanent bridge in. I think the intent was always to have a year-round access to it. Now we do temporary bridges, and it's always, weather related as how fast is the river flowing, so to speak. It's something that South County and the community has always wanted and been asking for. It's always been a funding issue. Obviously the money was redirected for the plans. It's going to be an expensive project no matter which way we look at it. But the goal was always to have plans in place where we could go out for outside funding. That's how the initial bridge was built, so it's concept. And we used some federal dollars, if I recall right.
And remember, in digging up some of that other information in the process of going out for the second RFP, I even had a lengthy conversation with the engineer that did that one. And he's the one that recommended the temporary bridges because of the span of the bridge, and he said that it wouldn't be a good source of county funds to do such a large project. So that's why
this new project.
this new project for the Delta Bridge is
right. Okay.
So anyways, this is something that my constituents, particularly South County, but I think, all the people that come and visit the lake would love to see a year-round thing. So this is really just put us on the spot. Are we willing to continue moving forward? Getting to a point where we can have a plan in place. I realize it's in a floodplain. I realize that there's, engineering issues, all that. But at the end of the day, I've been across enough bridges, enough places that it's an expensive project. But I do think it's something that the community does wish to happen at some point in time, knowing that it's not going to get done today. So we can bring the pace up.
Sean Wade, Pace Engineering, licensed structural engineer. So I prepared a tech memo. I think that was the attachment that I was referencing. Again, all I was kind of outlining there is give you guys an idea at this point, which is early on in the project, right? It's essentially a feasibility study. There's limited information from the engineering standpoint available. There's no geotechnical investigation, environmental reports, survey to determine topographic studies. So present that information so you have a rough idea of the cost range for this project. So that's what the memorandum is. Come up with a baseline cost, again, with very limited information at this time. It's presented as a range purely because of that. And that range is a representation of the accuracy level of the project at this time. It's using AACE guidelines, which is the Association for Advancement of Cost Engineering. So it's a -20 plus 50% range to estimate roughly the accuracy of the project at this point. As it advances, more data becomes known, that can tighten. So that's the memorandum that does. Just purely present the cost. So, going into any project feasibility study, you guys know the costs that you're up against potentially. And like Amanda said, the direction to proceed at that point. The recommendation would be to start some of that preliminary engineering investigation, get topographic data, get environmental data, get geotechnical, so we know what the foundations are going to look like. The cost information in there for the bridge is from Contech. They're a pre-manufactured bridge, essentially, to design it. And one of the struggles is the span of the areas across the delta, right? So it's going to result in essentially piers within the waterway. Determining the bridge elevation is going to be crucial for that from a debris flow standpoint, right? The bridge deck's got to be above the debris flow. So all that information's got to go into it.
So you're recommending to move forward on this?
Purely recommending the representation of the cost of the project. That's up to you guys as the council, right? I can't provide that. Is it feasible? Absolutely. You can do the project. Any project is feasible, right? You have the money and funds in place to do it.
So I think the other bridge was what, roughly 2.5 or 3 million?
So I think that's like a 250-foot span bridge, single span, so it's more of a cable stay bridge, right, where they can span over the entire way and not actually working on the waterway. That's the biggest that I see roadblock cost-wise with this project. You're working in the Sacramento River Delta.
Okay. Board members, any questions?
So I would just say, to me, I think the ultimate goal is to get to a point where we would never be able to afford it anytime soon, the complete project, but get to an engineered set of plans that allows us to go out for outside funding type of thing. And I realize it's expensive, but I do consider it an investment in South County tourism related. We get a lot of people come from out of the area, think you're bicyclists, think all those kind of things. So, and my anticipation would be that we would have to, I would use flood control funding for this. This would be a general fund type thing. We've had a great year water-wise, bringing in revenue. We always drop down from the power authority that we can build up a fund to get the plans in place. I think that's the key piece to this. But again, no illusions that we would ever be able to complete a project anytime soon. But I think for as long as I've been a supervisor, the South County residents have been clamoring for this for quite a while. So I'm asking for board support to move forward with this action.
that's a big chunk of change. I'll just say it that way. I mean, I get it, but I just, we had to turn $27 million back to the state for a jail project we couldn't complete. I'm interested in the, where did I hear that there was a recommendation to keep the temporary bridges in place? What was that about?
So it was a conversation, in the process of me going out for the second RFP, I was directed by council to reach out to the gentleman, I'm sorry, name is drawing me a blank, of the gentleman that did the Walker, or the Wagon Creek Bridge, because I believe that this project was proposed to him at that time, and he suggested that we stick with the temporary bridges because of the large cost to and it was a conversation that I had with him because I asked him to come to the walkthrough for the second RFP, and he considered it, but he, at that time, he said this was not something that he was interested in coming to check out at that time. He was had a foot out on retirement, so he didn't want to put in into a project that was gonna be longer than 2 years.
So where are we at with the trail going through the campground? Has that been resolved? Because we've gotten complaints from our franchisee that it's a problem. They won't let them through on certain areas. I mean, we were there on a tour during COVID, that it's a huge issue. So where are we on that?
That has not been brought to my attention in the 2 years that I've been in this position. I even had a meeting with Michelle last week, and she did not bring that to our attention. As far as I know, and what I've visually seen, there are people riding their bikes from point A through the campground to point A. So that has not been brought up to us in the last couple of years.
And flood control money, even though our rates are lower, I mean, it's not where we've been in our heyday. I see that we have something coming up here with regard to $500,000 for
Siskiyou Power Authority?
Yes, but that's where this money's derived from, because we transferred money from the Power Authority to flood control to help offset within the property as a whole.
Correct. And right now we have some very, very large projects for the dam coming up, between getting a new generator, getting the electrical done, which Pace is also involved in. We also have the interconnection, which is through Pacific Power, and they haven't given us an update yet on the cost of that, but the cost that they give us was about $700,000. They're supposed to give us another update, and it's gonna be over $1 million to redo the interconnection. So we have to look at those.
Understood. And I understand we still have, what, 3.5 million-ish in that maintenance fund?
I think pretty close to that.
Which will help offset that, but once that is depleted, it's gone, and we're not making, 16 cents a kilowatt that we used to, so.
And I know Joy's gonna bring this back to the board in another thing, but the projections to go into a PPA, a power purchase agreement, for the next 10 to 20 years, we're looking at 5 cents. We're gonna go down from what we've got right now, so we're not gonna.
I mean, I get the project. I just, the cost factor, I don't know how we do it. I don't know how we do it.
Well, I would just say this, Houston Year water wise, I think we just start allocating like we did with Power Authority for generate for all those kind of things that are going to come up.
Yeah, but we were making $2.5–3 million a year then. What are we at now?
Not that.
We're not. We're somewhere $5,000.
We're at a couple $100,000 months.
Yeah.
But we're not where we were before, and we have other infrastructure projects already out for roofs and for other things that need to happen now. So my worry is if we're not getting that money to supplement these.
I still think it's a matter of allocating, again, not all at once, maybe this takes a couple of years to get to a point. I would also remind the board, we had some money, significant money set aside for this, and was reallocated to not come before the board. Certainly didn't come from me for a decision what I would like to do. Again, that was what knowing that we don't have money sitting out there, that was our bite at the apple to get something that again, the communities has been asking for quite a while. And again, I get the temporary bridges, but they're just a big headache. Every year we gotta send someone out there, we gotta send out there to put them up, we gotta set them down. This would be, something to help off that,
We also have to think of that aftermath of these bridges, because even right now, the bridge that we have now, it needs to be inspected. We don't have a committee yet to inspect them. So in this bigger bridge, what regulations are we gonna have to worry about safety issues for such a high span bridge and having it inspected and maintained? What costs are those gonna happen to maintain a bridge?
Okay, well, anyways, where I'm at.
Yeah, understood. And I get it. I mean, it's not that the concept is bad.
Yeah.
I just don't know how we do it. I think that if grant money flowed in that took the whole thing on, that's a whole different animal for me. But I don't know how we do it where we are at with the hydro fees that we're getting now. Back in the day, we had dollars, but that also offset the general fund to some capacity. That we know now we're going up against a 5% potential, decrease for this next coming year, and hopefully, it'll be okay. But by what the state's doing, I don't know. So anyway, any comments from other board members?
The only thing I have is if there was some way to get a TA grant to produce an engineered plan that we can sit on the shelf, so that if someday we had federal funding or something for a shovel-ready project, that would be great, to produce a plan. But I don't think that we have, with the potential cuts that we're looking at over the next few months, when we're trying to figure out how we're going to fund what we need, to just keep operational. I don't think that this is something that is feasible right now. But if there's a way to find funding, to just look at a project that we can literally stick on a shelf to have something shovel ready, if over the next few years, 10 years, we can find money for a project. Sure.
Supervisor Chris?
And then for me, comprehensively, Lake Siskiyou's a huge economic driver. South County, DOT, all those sorts of benefits is a given. Those is a great asset to the county. I kind of like to be able to look at the comprehensive, bringing in different things, the dams, the inspections we may have to do for the current bridge that we have crossing, those sorts of factors. So I'd like to kind of comprehensively look at it, the whole project, the whole area. I know we've done tours and stuff like that, but necessarily saying those things, but how are we planning ahead? I know there's an insurance policy we have in place with money in reserve. If a log goes through the generating plant, those sorts of things. But I kind of like to see what the whole budget is. And then, because I know we have dam safety things we have to do with the horrible dam that happened there. There's more restrictions.
Yeah, we're going through
restrictions
for Part 12 right now. That's also has to be done because it's federally mandated, and that contract for this group to do it is almost $500,000. And I believe that's what Joy's bringing today for a budget transfer. So we have that, and so we also have $1 million+ to do the interconnection. That's just for the powerhouse out of Power Authority, and then getting the dam. And so we're looking in the next year, maybe $2 million out of Siskiyou Power Authority.
That's what I'd like. What would it be asked out of potential cost down the road and what we have?
You want a project list with costs?
Yeah, I think it sounds fair. Project list with costs. And then of course revenue we generated this year, of course, those things as well. The long-term cost, what we face, what we have to meet to keep the power generation, all those factors in place. In regards to, I wrote a little note here, technical assistance grants. I thought the Swears Organ had a great point there. If there are those things, now looking at the memo, were you asking for $703,000 at this stage?
No, this was just to give you the information of if you guys wanted us to go to the next, what cost would be. So if Pace Engineering stepped in and got us started with geotechnic or whatever that is, he's presenting the cost of what that's gonna be. So his side, it's gonna cost $700,000 just to get to the planning stage.
Okay, that's what I see here. I see
So-
750,000. Okay.
That's before the project even starts. You're looking at $730,000.
For a shovel-ready project.
For sure.
Okay, so yeah, I would say this, just to move this along, I get where we are budget-wise. At least you guys got the initial concept, whatever. I don't wanna, at this point, I would say let's table this. I think we need more information down the line, where we are with the power authority, where we are right now. And, you know, again, I've always thought we're gonna have to get grant money to actually do the project. Maybe we revisit, because I think the initial money we had allocated was 350,000. 300,000, which was not gonna be enough anyway, so maybe we look at it in smaller bite-sized pieces. Do we, you know, again, I think we're gonna have to put the skin in the game, but let's table this for now.
I'm okay with tabling it, or we're coming back when there's actually a viable grant on the line that could move this along.
Yeah.
But we
I
talk
think
about,
that's
you know,
my successor.
yeah. But we even talk about plowing Everett Memorial and the costs there that we don't have any longer, or that's difficult to meet. So there's some other things that need to be done. They're kind of like, I think, ASAP. One thing that we've talked about is a well for the campground, and specifically to get offline of the current spring or creek that we're using in case of a drought year, because we almost came up against closing that campground. So we should be looking at that. We should be looking at extending the boat ramp so that those that are housed on the marina aren't pulled out early when drawdown occurs, as well as during those drawdown months during the winter when it can be low, that others can still launch. I have brought it up in the past. We aren't looking at revenue generators on that property. And one of the future revenue generators, at least from my perspective, is being able to lease out lots on property that we're not using currently for specific cabin models that people can build, that they can use for recreation. That would increase the tax base for the county. It would increase TOT for the county. And it would put idle land productively into play to offset this loss of hydro rates that we're getting currently. And then that opens this door to, at least from my perspective, the improvements of the nature that we're talking today. I'll leave it at that. Okay, you have direction? We don't need to make a motion on this, I don't think, correct? No. Okay.
I think it was a good information. I just needed to come before the board so our constituents know where we are with this.
Yeah.
I think they're cognizant of the costs and expense too. I'm surprised actually, because I did reach out to them, that there's no one here to comment publicly. So be it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Where are we gonna go here? Board, are we okay going through another phase here before lunch, or do you want to?
There is somebody online.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Is this on the last item?
Nick Jocelyn, was your comment on the item that was just?
Yes, on the last item, I just wanted to clarify, I was listening to that item and I do appreciate the board's attention. The costs are extremely high, and I agree that's definitely something that would make the project something to consider when funding is available. So thank you all for the efforts and making that information public.
Thank you. All right. Where are we at here? I'm kind of inclined to go into item B, because I think Dr. Hart is available now. And then, after that, I think go into closed. How does that sound? We'll break for lunch. It's coming in, is that correct? Or is it here?
It's here.
It's here. Is it hot? No, all right. It'll hold is what I guess I'm after. So, shall we roll it out? Let's go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just gonna turn off the
Okay.
recording and turn it right back on.
So we are at, ready? Yeah. We're at item 8B, is that correct, Mr. Parker? The Butte Valley Groundwater Sustainability Plan? Yes?
Yes.
All right.
All right, good afternoon, Matt Parker, Siskiyou County Natural Resources. This item is regarding the DWR determination of the Butte Valley Groundwater Sustainability Plan. As a quick kind of a recap, on January 18th, the GSA of the board received a letter from DWR determining that the Butte Valley Groundwater Plan, or GSP, is incomplete, and thus set in motion a process for us to correct and resubmit to DWR by July 16th of this year. Our consulting team has been hard at work. We've met with DWR 4 or 5 times to discuss the fixes we are working on. We've brought material and topics to our advisory committees multiple times. A few weeks back, we had a very productive discussion with our advisory committee. And so today, Dr. Carter is going to provide the up-to-date information on how the correction to the plan is moving forward. Some dates to think about in the future. July 9th is our scheduled board hearing where you, the board, will re-adopt the plan so that we can get it submitted to DWR in a timely fashion. So with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Hart.
Mr. Chair, Board of Supervisors, my name is Thomas Harder. Can you hear me?
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Thomas Harder. I am Professor of Cooperative Extension at the University of California, Davis. And I wanted to give you an update on where we are with the technical team and the advisory committee, as Matt pointed out, with respect to the groundwater sustainability plan. And I appreciate Laura Foya's work and her team's work at Lara Walker and Associates putting these slides together. Next slide. So the DWR determined the groundwater sustainability plan that we submitted 2 years ago to be incomplete and requested 2 major corrective actions on the groundwater sustainability plan. One is to reconduct an assessment of overdraft conditions and then describe management actions to mitigate that overdraft. The key tasks here is to refine the water budget and better understand the degree to which the water budget is unbalanced and causes continued decline of water levels, and provide reasonable means to mitigate that decline in water levels. Corrective action 2 is to further justify why we're setting the sustainable management criteria, specifically the minimum thresholds for water levels at where we have set them, and more specifically, actually, prior to even setting these, specifically describe quantitative undesirable results that we're planning to avoid. And then, according to these quantitative undesirable results, we would be resetting minimum thresholds. Next slide. So, as Matt pointed out, we've been meeting with DWR on a monthly basis and will continue to do so The team at Larry Walker and Associate has redone some of the modeling and refined the water budget. We're reviewing the model results in the boundary conditions, and we are writing drafts of quantitative description of undesirable results for the users of groundwater, for users and users of groundwater, which involves a reanalysis and reconfirmation of the well outage analysis that was done for the groundwater sustainability plan. Next slide. So there's three key findings that we're making that are important. One is there is not an immediate threat of water levels reaching the minimum thresholds, but there is a further, if the current decline in some of the well continues, that decline would neither be desirable nor acceptable. And the representative monitoring network that we have is what we're using to monitor the water levels and whether or not they're declining. Next slide. Some of the wells have been stabilizing over the last few years. Next slide. Some wells have continued to show some declines. These are some examples from our representative monitoring network. What you see on these slides is on the y-axis, on the vertical axis, you have the elevation above mean sea level. On the x-axis, on the horizontal axis, you have time from the 1950s all the way through the 2040s. The blue line on this graph is the hydrograph. This is the measured water level at this particular well, which is indicated by a blue dot in the map of Butte Valley in the lower left-hand corner of the graph. Superimposed on this blue line is a black line, which is a trend line that was fitted to the red dots that are on the blue line. Basically, the fall water levels between 2000 and 2014, in order to determine for the most recent period, baseline period prior to 2015, what that decline in water level was. There's a number of other lines on here. The dashed dark red line at the top is the land surface elevation. The dashed green line is the upper level of where we would like water levels to be, and the solid green line is the lower level where we would like water levels to be, the so-called measurable objective. So essentially the green line and the dashed green line outline where we would like our operating range to be for water levels in Butte Valley. The orange line is a trigger level, and the red line is what we have defined in the groundwater sustainability plan as the minimum threshold. I'm showing these graphs primarily here to show where we have been in the last 6 years with respect to water levels through 2024, especially the last 4 years since we wrote the groundwater sustainability plan. So the last 3 or 4 or 5 dots on that blue graph to show that some of the wells are continuing to decline, some of the wells have stabilized. Next slide. This one happens to be one where we have seen some uptick in water levels. Next slide. This is one where winter water levels seem to have stabilized, or spring water levels have stabilized, which are the higher ones, but the lower ones, which are usually measured in the fall, in 2019 and 2020, have been lower than they have been before. Next slide. This is one that's not so prominently impacted by groundwater pumping, but where we continue to see a decline in water levels. Next slide. And here's another one that is ever so slightly continuing to decline up at the northeast boundary of the basin. Next slide. Here's another one where we see some leveling off more recently in water levels, and that's what we want to see in the future as well for all of the other monitoring wells. Next slide. And this is one last example where the winter water levels seem to have, the spring water levels seem to have stabilized, like the upper dots, but on the lower dots, we saw a jump downward in 2021 from the lowest point that was measured in 2015 or 2016 here. And in last year, we have come back up. And our desire is to make sure that these water levels, while they may fluctuate, start to stabilize around that green line or above that green line. Next slide. So the next finding is that in order to maintain these water levels at these desired levels, that is around the measurable objective or above the measurable objective, what we need to maintain is we need to maintain a sufficient subsurface outflow to the lake and Lost River area of Economic Wildlife Refuge through sort of the northeastern volcanics, which is marked by a small mountain range of Butte Valley. And the need for having that subsurface outflow affects the sustainable yield in Butte Valley. In order to come up with that sustainable yield, we use the Butte Valley Integrated Hydrologic Model, and I'll give you a very brief conceptual outline of how groundwater works in Butte Valley. Next slide. So in a very, very big picture, in a very oversimplified way, this is a cross-section through Butte Valley from the north side of Mount Shasta, all the way down to Butte Valley itself, which is where the groundwater basin is that the Groundwater Sustainability Agency is responsible for. So the light brown area is Butte Valley. That's the area for which we are writing the groundwater sustainability plan, and where we need to maintain water levels, which are shown here sort of as the top area of that light blue. That light blue area is schematic in the identification of where groundwater is and where the top of groundwater is. And then on the right-hand side, going toward the northeast, would be the Lower Klamath Wildlife Refuge, and then further to the northeast to the Lake and the Oregon border. Very oversimplified, we have volcanic rocks in dark brown, some sedimentary rocks interspersed with some volcanic rocks in Butte Valley itself. Most of the groundwater is coming from the mountains to the south and west of Butte Valley, where we have this much larger amount of precipitation, but soils are very permeable, and so we have relatively limited amounts of runoff. There's not a lot of rivers coming off of those mountains, and most of the water in the streams that are there will actually percolate into the subsurface and become groundwater before it enters Butte Valley, except on the rainiest days. So we have actually lots of groundwater entering this groundwater basin from the south and the west, really through Butte Valley, where some of it is pumped out for irrigation, and then evapotranspiration from the crops. And then we have some groundwater continuing on its journey to the northeast. What you can see is that Butte Valley has water levels higher than the Lower Klamath Wildlife Refuge and water levels that we would see in Ruby Lake or on the Oregon side. In order to keep water levels at the elevation where we want to be, we need to have some flow to the right, and that limits the amount of sustainable yield that we have in Butte Valley. Next slide. On this slide on the right, you see a map of the watershed bed around Butte Valley. With the middle map, the left of the two maps is indicating the amount of recharge. High amounts of recharge is in red, low amounts of recharge is in dark blue, and you can see very nicely here the large amount of recharge that occurs on the north side of Mount Shasta and the mountains to the north of Mount Shasta, and also on the west side of Butte Valley. Butte Valley itself is where you see the names from it grow Mount Hebron and the Highway 97 sign, and then Doris is up in the northeast corner. So the basin itself is actually a smaller part of this larger map, which shows in the red and gray line the area that we are modeling. On the right side, you again see the model area is the gray and blue lines around the map. In red on the right map, you see the areas where we have groundwater pumping. There's some groundwater pumping outside Butte Valley to the south and to the east. Most of the pumping is in Butte Valley itself. The groundwater flow is from the south and west towards the northeast and towards the east in this basin. And as I mentioned in the previous slide, Butte Valley is a way station on that groundwater flow path towards the Klamath River system. On the left side of this graph, I'm showing a typical water budget for the last 24 years, where on the y-axis you have volumes of acre feet per year of water, and on the x-axis, on the horizontal axis, you have time from 1990, which is when we start our model, to 2023. The numbers above zero are in green and blue. The green indicates the amount of recharge that occurs in the area that you see to the right. The blue and red indicate some inflow and outflow along the Klamath River on the northwest margin of this map area. They're relatively small. The purple and the brown bars show the amount of pumping in purple and the amount of groundwater outflow toward the northeast. And you can see that they are of similar magnitude, and together they more or less match the amount of recharge that we have in the system, primarily south of Butte Valley, south and west of Butte Valley. Recharge varies substantially over time, year to year, whereas that outflow and the amount of pumping are relatively stable. Next slide. When we look at sort of the future and we ask ourselves, if we continue our business as usual, where do we end up going? We considered two scenarios. One was the very, very dry part of the ongoing now 25-year mega drought that the Western United States is experiencing, and looking at just the last 13 years or 14 years, and basically repeating both the climate and the amount of groundwater pumping that has happened in the last 14 years over the next 120 years, over and over and over again. And if we continue to have that really dry climate, very, very dry climate, that we had over the last 13 years in this basin, and if you continue to do the amount of groundwater pumping with that really dry climate, then the brown line on the right-hand side essentially indicates the total groundwater storage change in the valley, and that we would see, indicating we would see a continued decline of water levels for possibly another century. So it's while the system wouldn't completely empty itself out, we would go to essentially a new equilibrium over the next 100 years in terms of water levels, but it would be well below our minimum thresholds. Next slide. We also simulated what would happen if we just stopped pumping at the end of 2023 and did nothing under these climate conditions we had in the last 13 years, if they were to continue over and over again for the next 120 years. And you see that the system would go to a different equilibrium, with water levels being significantly higher than they currently are. But the main part I want to point out is that we would see that change within the next 5 years. We would see significant changes in groundwater storage and therefore in water levels. And that's an important signal to us to say we should be able to observe changes within a 5-year period and be able to manage this in an adaptive way before we need to be at sustainability in 2042. Next slide. Here's another scenario. If we repeat, instead of the last 12 or 13 very, very dry years, we just repeat the last 24 years of mega drought. If that is the climate that we're going to continue to face, slightly less dry overall than the last 12 years were, we would still see a continued decline in water levels in the long run. And it would take, next slide, roughly a 10 to 15% reduction in groundwater pumping to bring that system into balance. That is, the brown line is no longer just continuing to decline. When we fix pumping at that level, we are at about 65,000 acre feet of groundwater pumping, which is the average that we estimate has been the groundwater pumping for the baseline period from 1990 to 2014. It's slightly above the pumping that has been reported in one report at least for the 1970s. It's about 5% less pumping than we had in the last 2 years. It's about 10% pumping of the average over the last 5 years. And it's about 13% less pumping than we measured in the really in the really dry years, these last 13 really dry years. So we will need a reduction in groundwater pumping to achieve sustainable yield. Next slide. That's essentially, again, with this finding 3, we have to revise the sustainable yield to be 10% less, 10 to 13% less than the average from the last 13 years, and about the same as what it was during the baseline period. That's basically what the slide repeats to say. Thank you. Next slide. Just for your information, this slide shows the pumping, the estimated amount of pumping over the last 34 years. On the left side is the table with the year and the amount of pumping in the 1990s. You see pumping being typically in the 50s and 60s, 1,000 acre feet per year, rising to around 70,000 acre feet per year in the 2000s, and in the drought between 2014 and 2017, we see significantly larger numbers of pumping. 2013 had the highest amount of pumping. We estimated it to be almost 90,000 acre feet per year at the time. That's reflected in the pink bars on the right graph. And this graph now is a water budget just for Butte Valley itself. So Butte Valley itself actually has very little recharge, so the green bars are relatively small, but it has a lot of underflow going into the valley, which is the blue bars. That's essentially the main source of groundwater in Butte Valley itself, underneath the valley floor. On the orange, again, is the flow that's going to the northeast outside of Butte Valley that we need to maintain to keep water levels from further declining in Butte Valley itself. Next slide. So in terms of the options that we have to address the corrective actions is we could revise the minimum thresholds to be at the lowest historic levels. This is a choice that many groundwater sustainability plans in Northern California have preferred. But that would mean a significant lowering of pumping in the Butte Basin, basically a stepwise program where we may end up with significantly more than 10 or 15% of groundwater pumping reduction, at least for an interim period. Another option, number 3, is to do not a whole lot, not consider a well mitigation program, to not limit groundwater use, but that would very likely mean, based on precedents now set by basin in the Central Valley, that we will fail the revision and we will end up in probation with the state water board under Chapter 11 of the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. Next slide. The option that we've recommended and that the advisory committee is supporting is to keep minimum thresholds and extended minimum thresholds as we defined it in Groundwater Sustainability Plan in 2022, but adjust the sustainable yield and have a very strong well mitigation program that will mitigate any undesirable results that occur even before we hit minimum thresholds, undesirable results that would occur to beneficial users and users in the basin, which is something that EWR is very much looking toward in our revision. And we, in looking at other groundwater sustainability plans and that have gone through revisions, a strong well mitigation program is going to be a key element of this revision. And the other part of this will be the adjustment of the groundwater pumping by 10 to 15%, depending on which reference period you use for this, to about 65,000 acre feet, and having ways to be able to actually enforce that and account for that reduction in groundwater pumping. That will be the other part that we will have to address in this revision of the groundwater sustainability plan. Next slide. So I don't think this kind of summarizes most of what I've said. I think at this point, I'm going to just skip the last couple of slides and leave it to questions.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Parker, anything you want to add? Or
nothing further to add.
Okay. Board questions?
No questions. I think you covered it. Board does have questions. I don't want to jump ahead of them, but if not, I would be correct with action number 2 as recommended by our BC Davis, as well as recommended by the Valley Sigma Advisory Board.
So do we have action on this today?
Asking for direction to rest.
I see direction. So
yeah, you don't need a motion.
That I'm fine with that.
Essentially, we're asking for your thumbs up on what we presented, what the advisory committee has sort of agreed on, and provided their support behind. Next steps would be to basically take the same set of information to DWR for sort of one last discussion and say negotiation of sort. That's not really negotiation. But in the meanwhile, we start rewording the GSP where appropriate to go along with what has been discussed.
Okay. We have a public comment.
Caller ending 5994, it is your turn to speak.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, good afternoon.
Hi, this is Rick Dowdy from Copco Lake.
Yes. Are you speaking on the Butte Valley thing, or the item that we're just talking about now? Is that correct?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the water problem, basically.
Okay. Go ahead.
We've been fighting dam removal for over 20 years. It's one problem after another. It seems to me that the people responsible for dam removal are basically terrorists, and you can't negotiate with terrorists. And that's where we made our mistake. And until we run them out of our county and start rebuilding dams, this issue and problem is just gonna keep going on. And there might be 1 year, 5 years, 20 years from now before we finally decide we made a mistake, like taking the dams out. But eventually, we're going to need to rebuild dams. That's all I want to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So I think you have 4 nodding heads for what you've proposed. So,
Okay.
All right. I think we're all on the same page. Yes.
Sounds good. We will be back on July 19th with July 9th. What did I say? 19th. It's probably 19th.
You'll be here by yourself.
But yeah, the 9th.
July 9th.
Yeah, we've got to publish the 45 days out.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to finish up the agenda before we go to close so that I don't hold anybody or make anybody come back. If that's all right. And even if you disagree, we're going forward. Go ahead.
That's fine. We're still in flood.
We're still in flood. And I'm going to item 8C. Okay. This is Lake Siskiyou Resort Rate Adjustment.
Good afternoon, Amanda Kibble, Deputy Director of General Services. The department was approached by the operators of campground to ask you for a rate increase Attached to the resolution is the rates proposed. They are asking for a $3 increase across the board for campsites and cabins.
Okay, questions from the board? I don't have any difficulty with this. The only thing that I would have difficulty with is if they've already implemented before they come here.
They have not.
Okay, thank you. Looking for action then.
My comment would be, I get the cost go up, whatever, but I don't expect this to be an annual thing that we're gonna keep raising rates. With that, I'll make the motion.
I have a motion. I'll second.
Alrighty, Director Valenzuela.
Yep.
Director Chris.
Aye.
Director Ogren. And Director Thompson.
Aye. Item 8E, transfer of funds. Who's doing that? Just do it.
It's kind of like a consent item.
It is, okay.
Move to approve.
All right, second, go ahead. Director Ogren.
So who?
Director Ogren, the second.
For the second, okay, thank you. Alrighty, Director Valenzuela. For the transfer. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Director Chris.
Aye.
Director Ogren. Aye. And Director Thompson.
Aye. Minute approval for the flood control.
I received no corrections.
Take your choice.
Okay. Alrighty, Director Valenzuela.
Yep.
Director Chris.
Aye.
Director Ogren. Aye. And Director Thompson.
Aye. We will adjourn as the Siskiyou County Flood Control and Water Conservation District and convene as the Siskiyou Power Authority. Item 9A. This is the time for public comment. Any in-house? Seeing none. Any online?
Showing none online.
None online. Item 9B, transfer of funds.
Could you remind me again what specifically what this is?
This is the
Just the Northridge? The FERC piece,
FERC.
yep, okay. Move to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Director Valenzuela.
Yep.
Excuse me, Director Chris.
Aye.
Director Ogren. Aye. And Director Thompson.
Aye. We'll adjourn as the Siskiyou Power Authority and reconvene as the Siskiyou County Board of Supervisors. And we're at 11A, if I'm not mistaken. This is the local emergency regarding illegal cannabis.
So moved.
To extend.
Second.
And I have a second.
Extend. Alright, Supervisor Valenzuela.
Okay.
Supervisor Chris.
Aye.
Supervisor Ogren. Aye. And Supervisor Thompson.
Aye. Minute approval, 13A and B.
Move to approve. The only thing I found is a couple of little typos, but no other changes.
Okay.
Second.
And a second.
And we're doing,
Oh.
and it's Ogren and Valenzuela?
Yes.
Thank you. Supervisor Valenzuela.
Mhm.
Supervisor Chris.
Aye.
Supervisor Ogren. And Supervisor Thompson.
Aye. Before we go to close, any staff reports?
Nothing to report.
Board reports?
Save it for a later date.
Okay, we're on headed. Thank you very much. With that, we're going into closed session.
Hey, brother.
Call you later.
No, it seems like we have quite a few more, so
530.